Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Awaken the weakest talent. I rejected the school flower. Chapter 61. Okay, well done, ha ha ha, this kid. Outside the secret, in front of the big screen. An old man looked at the scene of Chen Ang turning back and killing Fu Zhesheng on the screen, and suddenly exclaimed in admiration. Obviously very satisfied with Chen Ang's decisiveness. Hee, this kid is a little bold. Another old man laughed. His behavior can easily arouse public anger, and Fu Zhesheng, I remember that he is Fu Tiansheng's younger brother. Maybe there will be trouble at that time. Trouble, hee. The last one shook his head and sneered. There's nothing wrong with him doing this. After all, he has the ability to flip the table. That kid Fu Zhesheng is also looking for death, so he dares to go up there. Doesn't that mean he's going to die? As for Fu Tiansheng, if he wants to make trouble, he might end up like his younger brother. After all, this guy is not easy. Saying that, he took out a document, opened it and looked at the introduction about Chen Ang, with a look of anticipation flashing in his eyes. Name, Chen Ang. Talent, Dragon Claw. Obviously, his talent has evolved. Hearing this, several people's eyes flashed. No wonder, I thought his talent was a little familiar before. I never thought that it was the talent after the evolution of Dragon Claw. It is a powerful talent. Based on this alone, it can be seen that this little guy has some understanding of the evolution of talent. An old man tapped the table with his index finger and said, I have read the information, orphans, but talent evolution belongs to extreme evolution, and has its own opportunities, but this is not the most important is the second talent. I have read all of his materials at the beginning, and they are materials for the recovered body. But after acquiring the body of recovery, the two characteristics are also activated very soon, and even the body of recovery will evolve. And the material for the evolutionary recovery body is not the material of the iron wall we imagined. Hearing this, an old man beside him suddenly blinked. You mean, the evolution direction of his recovery body belongs to an unknown direction? Like his dragon claws, it is a route that no one has ever evolved. It's very likely, yes. The old man nodded affirmatively. After receiving such an answer, the other two old men couldn't help but smile. Funny, so much fun. This kid, ha, I have always been optimistic about him. Now, the old man is looking forward to his future more and more. How about it? You two old guys, how about giving this kid to me? Hee. Let's go, old man, let me give it to you. I want to eat shit. That is, the strength of this kid is obviously beyond the standard, and he is not at the same level as his peers. No surprise, this kid is the leader of this session, and this kid can really be called an opponent. It is estimated that there are not many people of the same age. The real opponents may have to be those students from the previous session or even the last session. Yeah, when this kid goes to college, I'm looking forward to what will happen, ha. And the talent of the Dragon Claw is already strong, and it seems to be even more so after evolution. I just don't know if this kid can make it again, evolve. In secret, Chen Ang looked at Lu Yong calmly. Facing Chen Ang's gaze, Lu Yong moved his lips and wanted to say something, but he felt a great pressure and couldn't say anything. His heart, like the crowd of onlookers, was incomparably shaken. This guy, how dare he? It went straight to the point. And he killed Fu Zhesheng with one blow. What terrifying power is this? Lu Yong and Fu Zhesheng had battles, and they were evenly matched. Therefore, Lu Yong can say that he is very clear about Fu Zhesheng's strength. Even peeking at the leopard, making him confident to face the guys in front of the standings, he is not afraid at all. Even if you lose, it is impossible to kill yourself. But now looking at Chen Ang in front of him, he doesn't have that confidence anymore. I even had a feeling that if I was looking for death like Fu Zhesheng, then the person in front of me would kill me, and I'm afraid it would be the same as killing Fu Zhesheng. Thinking of this, Lu Yong swallowed his saliva even more. After a while, he came back to his senses, and a reluctant smile appeared on his pale face. Brother Chen, what are you talking about? That fellow Fu Zhesheng doesn't know how to trouble you, and he deserves it. How could I take action against Brother Chen for him? Hearing this, Chen Ang waved his hand, shook off the blood on it, and said calmly. So the best. After speaking, Chen Ang waved again, put away the space bag on Fu Zhesheng's waist, and took Li Leiyao to the side. Facing Chen Ang's departure, some people subconsciously gave way, for fear of blocking Chen Ang. It was not until Chen Ang and Li Leiyao gradually moved away that someone finally took a deep breath and spoke. This guy. Wild. Yes, it's too fierce. What's more, it's outrageously strong. Fu Zhesheng's strength is already terrifying, but this guy can kill Fu Zhesheng with one blow. It's too strong. Hey, it's so terrifying. Fu Zhesheng probably never thought that he would die so easily, right? Ha ha ha, that guy, he deserves a good death. He is arrogant everywhere because of his own strength. If he hadn't looked at his brother's face, Laozi and others would have killed him long ago. It's incredible, there's going to be a fierce guy this year. Hey, look at Lu Yong's face. I guess I also thought that people would just lift the table without giving any face, right? Ha ha ha, just kidding, with such strength, do you still need to give face? The words that came from his ears made Lu Yong's face ashen. Thinking of what I looked like just now, I felt a burst of shame. But remembering Chen Ang's strength, he quickly calmed down, then his eyes flashed and a smile appeared. Interesting, Dad, it seems that you were right. In this era, strength is the foundation. There is no difference between ordinary people, rich children, and gifted families. Strength is the foundation. As long as the strength is strong enough, ordinary people can easily wipe out a family of talented people. He murmured, and then cursed darkly. Fu Zhesheng, killed him. Looking at his arrogant appearance, Laozi thought that Chen Ang was not that strong. How could he know it would be so scary? Now that Laozi wants to make friends with others, he has to find a way to formally apologize first. Forget it, he just got that thing, so he can use that thing as a gift to express his apology. Although he was refuted by Chen Ang and felt humiliated. But it was just that moment of anger. After the anger, calm down. He is a wise man, or his family has taught him well, and even if he makes a mistake, he will make up for it quickly. He saw Chen Ang's potential and future in Chen Ang, but he didn't want to provoke such a decisive guy for himself and his family. But if you don't know each other, maybe you can seize this opportunity and get closer to Chen Ang. He pondered in his heart, his eyes brightened, he made a decision immediately, and turned to leave. The other side. Chen Ang and Li Leiyao walked to an open area. Chen Ang asked, "How did you come here?" "Just by chance, I found out that many people came here, and then I knew that I was going to wait for you after the auction. After all, I am quite dangerous by myself." Hearing this, Chen Ang nodded, suddenly remembered and asked, "Your talent has evolved?" "Yes." Li Leiyao nodded, raised her hand with a smile and said, "Thanks to you, you see, I have evolved into the holy light." A dazzling golden shimmer appeared in her palm, exuding a warm atmosphere like the sun. Extreme evolution. Well, not only that, I also learned a skill, you see. As she said that, Li Leiyao raised her hand and made a bow-drawing gesture. Suddenly a golden arrow condensed and shot out with a loud "poochie," piercing through 10 trees in a row in an instant, with extremely strong penetrating power. "What skill is this?" Chen Ang asked curiously. "The arrow of holy light. Dad got it for me, I don't know where it came from." "Tisk, it's good." Chen Ang nodded. With this kind of skill, at least as long as it is not approached, there is no shortage of long-range means. And it seems that this long-range means is also very powerful. Then Chen Ang asked Li Leiyao about the auction. After Li Leiyao immediately told Chen Ang what she knew, Chen Ang looked stunned. "I see." From Li Leiyao, he understood why this auction was held. Because someone found out that points are transferable. Points can be transferred by simply placing 2 watches together. This is something that hasn't been said before. It is estimated that the official did this on purpose, which made Chen Ang feel numb in his scalp. Tisk, is this the official default that the candidates are fighting each other? If not, this function would not be possible. Although Chen Ang doesn't mind this aspect. But it can also be seen that once all candidates know about this method, there will definitely be many people who choose to kill other candidates instead of dealing with beasts. The points for killing beasts are probably not as fast as killing candidates. Chen Ang didn't understand the purpose of doing this. Of course, cultivating the strong is certain. And this auction can be held because the points can be transferred, so it is planned to use the points as a transaction. Because of this, many students agree. Be aware that not all candidates are as strong as you are. At the same time, there are also many candidates who are weak and very smart at the same time. Points are important. This is related to whether they can pass the college entrance examination or even enter the college they want to go to. But relying on your own strength to obtain points is difficult to complete. In this way, this auction is very necessary. Some candidates are lucky and can find precious materials or treasures in the secret realm, which may also be very useful to them. But nowhere near as important as points. As long as you have enough points, you can enter a good college, which represents the future. It is far from what some of the current treasures and materials can compare with. At the same time, Chen Ang was also surprised by the guy named Lu Yang. It's a smart guy, Chen Ang thought to himself. Smart indeed. With this simple hand, the candidates who come here will know him. No matter which college you go to after the college entrance examination, there must be someone among the freshmen who knows him, and it will be very easy to win over your team at that time. Of course, Chen Ang didn't care about these and asked about other things. Have you seen Xiao Yiqing? No, it is estimated that the transmission is far away from us. I have not seen Xie Kangning, Zhao Sibo and the others. Li Le shook his head and replied. Hearing Xie Kangning's name, a coldness flashed in Chen Ang's eyes. But he immediately shook his head and stopped paying attention. If you haven't met them now, you are lucky. But there are always times. Chen Ang. Beside her, Li Leyao suddenly opened her mouth and asked Chen Ang expectantly by pulling on Chen Ang's sleeve. Can I come with you after the auction is over? What? Chen Ang was surprised when he heard the words. But then came the reminder. Where I go, it might be a little dangerous. It's okay, I'm not afraid. Li Leyao immediately patted her chest that was not big enough and said. And I feel safe with you. I'm alone, maybe someone will steal my points, and maybe I won't be able to pass the college entrance examination. Chen Ang laughed a little. You believe me so, aren't you afraid I'll rob you? Hee, don't be afraid. Li Leyao raised her head, her eyes full of trust. Chen Ang shook his head helplessly. Okay, then follow me. Well, don't worry, when you get hurt, I can still restore you. That's not necessary. Chen Ang smiled. For now, Holy Light's healing power is probably not as good as his own resilience. The auction will start tomorrow. So Chen Ang is going to stay for a day and consider leaving after the auction starts. Maybe there is something you need at the auction. After all, Chen Ang is definitely not lacking in points. Suddenly, it's a special item, look at Chen Ang. Li Leyao suddenly screamed, pulling Chen Ang to point into the distance. Chen Ang turned his head to look, and the beam of light soaring into the sky came into view. But then he frowned and sighed. Too far, yes. Although the beam of light can be seen, it is because it rises into the sky, which is nothing. Seeing and seeing, the distance is really far. At least according to Chen Ang's own judgment, it will take at least a day to pass. After this time, the special items have long been taken away. Yeah, so far. Li Leyao also thought of this, showing a pity expression. Seeing this, Chen Ang's eyes flickered. Li Leyao can be regarded as his friend and a good partner in the future. Chen Ang touched his chin and thought about it, wondering if he should get a special item for the other party in the future to help the other party pass the college entrance examination. Not to mention anything else, in the future, Li Leyao's talent wants to be transformed, and most of it will have to rely on himself. This is a good opportunity to find materials and treasures, and Li Leyao must not die. But when Chen Ang was thinking about it, footsteps sounded. Brother Chen, I'm really sorry just now, I'm here to apologize to you. Lu Yong walked apologetically from not far away, cupped his hands and said, his eyes full of sincerity. Chen Ang glanced at Lu Yong in surprise, and immediately said with deep meaning. It's all right. Having said that, but after all, I bullied Brother Chen first. I will definitely apologize to Brother Chen. I hope Brother Chen will not take what happened just now. Here is a gift from me as an apology, I hope Brother Chen will accept it. How? Lu Yong said, with a wave of his hand, the same item appeared in the palm of his hand. Seeing this, Chen Ang's eyes flashed even more, and he stared deeply at the young man in front of him. What do brothers Chen Ang think? Lu Yong asked enthusiastically. After Chen Ang was silent for a while, he stretched out his hand to take the things that Lu Yang handed over and put them away, saying with deep meaning. Actually, this is not necessary, but since Brother Lu is so sincere, it's my fault to refuse again. So Brother Chen has forgiven me. Chen Ang laughed. If you don't forgive me, I don't know what's wrong. Hearing this, Lu Yang smiled even more. Ha ha ha, that's not true, but Brother Chen, just forgive me. There will be an auction tomorrow. Although it is only held by us candidates, there are still some good things. If Brother Chen is interested, you can come and participate. Also, if Brother Chen doesn't mind, how about adding contact information? Can. Chen Ang nodded, and after exchanging contact information with Lu Yang turned and left without any hesitation, and gestured to Chen Ang, who was beside Li Leiyao, winking. Perhaps in Lu Yang's eyes, Li Leiyao is Chen Ang's girlfriend. In this regard, Chen Ang was too lazy to defend himself, but just watched Lu Yang's leaving back and muttered in his mouth. Smart guy. In fact, Lu Yang's eyes flickered as he left, and he whispered in his heart. This Chen Ang is not as murderous as he seems, but is actually extremely smart. Such a person should not be offended, but fortunately, he has made friends again. He breathed a sigh of relief. If Chen Ang rejected him, to be honest, he probably wouldn't be so worried. After all, this means that Chen Ang is just a person who has no strength and potential and doesn't know how to adapt. In that case, even if he provokes the other party, but based on the other party's character, he also concludes that even if the other party has a strong enough potential, he may not be able to live to the moment of full growth. But now, he feels that Chen Ang's future is destined to be bright. Chen Ang naturally didn't know what Lu Yang was thinking. At this moment, he looked at the thing in his hand, and the corner of his mouth twitched. It's a treasure. Dragon's blood fruit. After taking it, the improvement of physical strength is not high. The usefulness of this thing is to help the talent learn dragon attribute skills. It should have been noticed by the other party when Chen Ang killed Fu Zhesheng and cast the dead dragon arm. Li Leiyao asked curiously, Chen Ang, why is that guy suddenly being so polite to you again? Chen Ang explained, why else? Befriend me. I think it's better to befriend me if you offend me. Hearing this, Li Leiyao nodded thoughtfully, and then became envious. BFCH, I feel that you are too powerful, and you are getting stronger and stronger. I don't know when I will have your strength. Haha, if you practice hard, you can always achieve it. Chen Ang smiled and comforted him casually, then went to find a place to rest with Li Leiyao. After talking to Li Leiyao, Chen Ang came to the side alone and sat cross-legged, swallowed the dragon's blood fruit, and took out the ancient dragon's breath to learn. There are good things, Chen Ang will definitely not hesitate. Earlier, because I felt that I would not be able to learn it in a short period of time, I was not in a hurry. But now that there is dragon blood fruit, it is natural to try it. Just like learning to tear claws at the beginning, dragon breath is even more difficult to learn, making Chen Ang frown and unable to get started. But fortunately, Chen Ang's patience has also increased a lot after becoming a talented person. After taking a deep breath, he calmed down and studied and cultivated seriously. Time passes slowly in practice. After night falls, Chen Ang and Li Leiyao had dinner and continued to practice. Before you know it, a new day arrives. The sun rises. The light of that special item yesterday had long since disappeared, and it was given to Tongxi, because the other party's points increased by 5,000 yesterday. Resting place. Chen Ang sat cross-legged all night long. As it dawned, only after opening his eyes did he realize that Li Leiyao had already started preparing breakfast. When he noticed that Chen Ang woke up, he said with a bright smile, Chen Ang, go wash up, you can have breakfast after you wash up. Good. Chen Ang smiled and nodded, looking at Li Leiyao, who was wearing hot pants and short sleeves and had fair skin. I have to say, it was very moving. Maybe it's because of a change of clothes. The hills that were invisible yesterday are now people dare not look directly. Even after Chen Ang glanced at it, he couldn't help but look away with a guilty conscience, touched his nose, and always felt a little angry. But soon, Chen Ang sighed again. Tisk, dragon breath skills are a bit difficult to learn. Fortunately, it's not that there is no progress, but we will have to focus on it for a few days before we can officially get started. Shaking his head, Chen Ang got up, took a shower, and had breakfast with Li Leiyao before heading to the auction. Today is the start of the auction. Chen Ang is looking forward to this. Of course, in addition to Chen Ang, many people are also looking forward to this. When Chen Ang and Li Leiyao arrived, many people's eyes turned to this side, with panic and fear in their eyes. Obviously, the scene caused by Chen Ang yesterday made many people feel afraid of Chen Ang. Brother Chen, you came at the right time, the auction will start immediately, I'm just reserving a seat for you and Miss Li, come with me. Lu Yong was busy early in the morning. After seeing Chen Ang and Li Leiyao, he immediately stepped forward and said enthusiastically. Hearing this, Chen Ang nodded with a smile. Thanks then. Polite. Lu Yong stopped, led Chen Ang and Li Leiyao to the front seat and sat down, then left to continue working. While chatting with Li Leiyao, time passed, and before I knew it, the auction started. The host of the auction was naturally Lu Yong himself. Did this guy use a platform and a curtain? After the auction started, this guy came out from behind the curtain and said to everyone with a smile. Everyone is welcome to participate in the auction we are holding this time. Although the conditions are simple, as an auction, the auction items must be the most important. So I won't say more nonsense, let's start the auction directly. And the first lot, please see, this is a material, and it is also a material with dark attributes, dark tentacles. The starting price is 10 points, and the price increase is not less than 5 points each time. Now the auction starts. The first lot was an insect-like tentacle that was no more than 2 centimeters long, exuding a dark aura. Although it is only a material, it is still very precious as a dark type, which makes Chen Ang a little surprised. It's a pity that this thing is useless to him, so he loses interest just by looking at it. But there are also many people who are interested, and soon there are bids. Number 10, 15 points. Number 17, 20 points. Number 7, 25 points. Hands up one by one. After a while, the first lot was auctioned off at a price of 80 points. Then the second one, the third piece, fourth piece. The lots all had some value, but there was none that Chen Ang needed. After the fifth piece came out, Chen Ang sat up straight, with a hint of surprise in his eyes. This fifth lot is incredible. It was obtained by a friend from a dangerous place in the secret realm. It should be that when this secret realm was used as a secret realm for the college entrance examination, a strong man eliminated the powerful beasts in the secret realm and left it behind. Speaking of which, everyone should be very curious, right? Ha ha ha, I will stop talking nonsense, please read. That's right, this is a drop of blood, and it's also the material of the Death Yulong's heart and blood. This kind of material is very rare for us at present. Don't hesitate if you are excited, otherwise, if you miss it, next time I don't know when I want to meet you. Lu Yong said loudly on the stage. In the glass bottle in his hand, a drop of blood was quietly placed inside, exuding the breath of death. Chen Ang stared at the drop of blood, with horror in his eyes. The blood of the dead dragon. How could there be such a thing here? Could it be that it was really left behind by a strong person who was cleared before? This thing can be said to be the last material needed for the evolution of his dead dragon arm. But alas, here, only a drop. And he needs 3 drops. But is this important? No, the important thing is that this drop of blood means that there used to be dead dragons in this secret realm. And there might still be. Even, since it was found by other candidates, it would definitely not be obtained after killing the dead Yulong, otherwise it would definitely rank in the standings. And other people can find it, if you search for it yourself, can you also find other heart blood? After all, he has gold finger. I don't know who got it, it looks like I'll have to find a way to get the news from Lu Yong later, it's best to find out where this drop of blood was found. Thinking of this, Chen Ang's eyes flickered. Auction has started. Someone has bid, but not many bidders. After all, not everyone has the talent of death attribute. Most of the bidders are thinking of making a difference and selling them for a lot of money. Chen Ang didn't talk nonsense, he raised his hand directly. 1,000 points. Oh, brother Chen Ang bid 1,000 points, is there any more? Is there anyone else bidding? Although Lu Yong was surprised, he did not forget his own job and immediately shouted. However, with Chen Ang's bid, others fell silent. Someone laughed. Brother Chen Ang needs it, then let it go to brother Chen Ang. This is a gesture of friendship and friendship. Chen Ang nodded in response with a smile, and bowed his hands as a thank you. If someone gives face, Chen Ang will naturally not be ignorant. Everyone carries the sedan chair. Although he knew that most people were afraid of him. 1,000 points for the first time. 1,000 points for the second time. 1,000 points for the third time. Well, this drop of blood now belongs to Brother Chen Ang. I will collect it later after the auction ends. Lu Yong sounded the gongs and drums, and the auction was completed. Then continued to auction off other things. But Chen Ang didn't pay attention. Li Leiyao was surprised. Chen Ang, is this the material you want? Yes, it's amazing. How do you know your talent evolution materials? I still don't know what materials I need for evolution. Li Leiyao said in amazement, looking at Chen Ang with a bit of admiration in his eyes. After all, she knows very well that her talent and Chen Ang's talent belong to the direction that no one has ever evolved. Therefore, all materials and properties need to be explored by themselves. But she still doesn't even know how to activate the feature. However, Chen Ang found all the materials he needed. Li Leiyao, who knew about the difficulties, was naturally shocked, and inevitably had a longing for it. Chen Ang smiled, glanced at Li Leiyao and said, "Find out more, and you'll know it naturally. If you figure it out, you can come to me and let me help you." Of course, Chen Ang reminded, "It's not free, it's paid." I didn't say no to pay. Li Leiyao was still very moved by the previous words, but because he asked for a reward, the feeling of being moved suddenly disappeared, and he couldn't help pouting. But then, she laughed again, squinting. "Hey, what you said, I'll find you when the time comes." "Of course, I'll keep my word," Chen Ang replied with a smile. The information about Li Leiyao appeared in front of him. Li Leiyao, Talent, Holy Light, Evolution Direction, 3. 1. Fallen Evil Light. 2. Execution of Evil Golden Light. 3. The Light of Faith. The evolutionary root of Shengguang was already displayed in front of his eyes. However, he did not expect that there are so many evolutionary directions of Shengguang, and each evolutionary route does not look simple. When you meet Xiao Yiqing, you can make a deal with him. Chen Ang touched his chin and muttered, "Rotate. This talent is also rather unique. It shouldn't be bad after evolution." Touching my chin, breathing and thinking, the auction ended soon. Chen Ang got up immediately and dragged Li Leiyao to the backstage to find Lu Yong. "Brother Chen Ang, you can transfer the points to me, and then I will transfer them to the seller," Lu Yong said when he saw Chen Ang coming. Hearing this, Chen Ang nodded. No nonsense, after the watch was docked, 1,000 points were transferred. This Lu Yong is also a talent. It is definitely beneficial for him to take the initiative to do this, and if there is no accident, he will get a commission. 0. After turning the points, Chen Ang did not leave, but asked, "Brother Lu Yong, can you do me a favor?" Oh, hearing that Chen Ang wanted to ask himself to help, Lu Yong couldn't help flashing curiosity in his eyes. "Brother Chen Ang, please say. I want you to help me ask the seller of the blood that dyed Yulong's heart, where did he find this drop of blood, and if possible, I will give out points to buy this news." Hearing this, Lu Yong was surprised and immediately thought. After a while, he nodded and said, "It stands to reason that I shouldn't help with this. After all, it's a bit against the rules, but for the sake of Brother Chen, I can ask. But please wait here for a while. How about Brother Chen?" "Nature." Chen Ang smiled and nodded. Lu Yong immediately turned and left. About a quarter of an hour later, he came back and handed Chen Ang a map in his hand, saying, "Brother Chen, he is willing to sell it. This is a map, but it costs 500 points, and I haven't seen it. You can rest assured. How about it?" Chen Ang's mouth curled into a smile. "No problem, of course I believe Brother Lu Yong. I will transfer the points to you." "Ha ha ha, good." Lu Yong also nodded with a smile. After turning over the points, Chen Ang said goodbye to Lu Yong. After leaving the auction area, Chen Ang took the map and opened it to read. The map should have just been drawn, the handwriting has not yet dried, and the drawing is very simple. But when Chen Ang saw the content inside, his eyes widened and his expression was astonished. How can this place be? Although the map is very crude. But the familiarity came to mind, and Chen Ang could see it at a glance. Isn't this where the power of the divine dragon gods fell into this world? It's the same map location recorded in the diary I got from the skeletal space bag earlier. Only, what Chen Ang didn't understand was that the dragon was a sacred dragon. The power attribute of the sacred dragon is strictly light or life. How can it be related to death? Is there a change? Or did a dead dragon be born there later? Thinking of this, a look of anticipation flashed in Chen Ang's eyes. Chen Ang, why are you so excited? Li Leiyao asked curiously. Chen Ang put away the map and chuckled. Although I got Yulong's blood just now, it's still a little bit worse. Now that I get the map and know the location, I'll go there to see. 053, maybe I can get some more, and then I will be able to evolve, of course excited. Hearing this, Li Leiyao nodded and asked. Then shall we go now? Chen Ang didn't waste time and said directly. Let's go. After speaking, he and Li Leiyao set off directly and quickly left the place. The distance is far, but must go. Time passed quietly, and before I knew it, another day passed. At the same time, somewhere in the secret realm, Xie Kangning looked at the two Wangxingta mages in front of him and asked with a frown. Are you my father's helper? A mage nodded and said. I didn't expect you to find this place. Is it the map your father gave you? Of course. Xie Kangning raised the corner of his mouth and asked. Father said, let me enter the secret realm and come here, saying that you will help me get some things and protect me in the secret realm, right? After the two Wangxingta mages looked at each other, although they were a little disdainful of Xie Kangning, they did not show it, but nodded silently. However, a Wangxing Tower mage frowned and said, what do you want us to do? Right, Xie Kangning said with a sneer at the corner of his mouth. I want you to help me kill someone, a classmate of mine. Your classmate? Yes. Hearing this, the two agreed after thinking about it without much hesitation. After all, in their opinion, how strong can Xie Kangning's classmates be? And those who can be regarded as enemies by Xie Kangning are probably similar to Xie Kangning. When the time comes, it will be slaughtered. Xie Xiao, your enemy said otherwise, you'd better stay with us in the next period of time. We have to look for something here, and when we get it, we will give you a part of it according to your father's agreement, and only then will we have it. We'll leave to help you kill your so-called enemy. Before that, Xie Xiao, you'd better be calm. After all, our identities are inconvenient to expose, you don't want to cause unnecessary trouble. A sorcerer reminded. Hearing this, Xie Kangning was a little unhappy with the mage's tone, but he knew that these people were not accepted by him and his father, so he could only pouted and nodded and asked. Then what are we looking for here? A force, strength, yes, the power of the gods. Although that power has dissipated a lot with the erosion of time, it definitely still remains, and there may even be part of the power of the law that remains in it. Whether it is your father or us, we need it. If you get it, for you there are also huge benefits. Hiss. As soon as these words came out, Xie Kangning nodded again and again, his eyes flashing with excitement. Not long after, Xie Kangning joined them and searched this lush ancient land. This area is too big. Make them hard to find. Chen Ang naturally didn't know about this. After a day has passed. With the rising sun, Chen Ang and Li Leiyao are finally about to reach their destination. Just suddenly, Chen Ang stopped, a look of doubt flashed in his eyes. What's wrong? Li Leiyao asked suspiciously. Chen Ang recovered, smiled and shook his head at Li Leiyao. It's nothing, just remembered something, let's go on. It is good. Li Leiyao didn't think much about it and continued to move forward with Chen Ang. But he didn't know that, at this moment, Chen Ang had hints in front of him. Not long before you arrived in this direction, two members of the blood sect passed by. It is recommended not to speed too fast, otherwise you will meet head-on. Friendly reminder, in front of the blood sect, there are members of the Wangxing Tower. What's the situation? The Wangxing Tower and the blood sect are all gathered in one place. Did they come for the power of the divine dragon spirit that fell here? This is the only reason Chen Ang can think of. But it is precisely because of this that Chen Ang is not panicked, but more excited. Doesn't this obviously mean that the falling power of the sacred dragon was not taken away? You should have a chance. The members of the blood sect and the Wangxing Pagoda will definitely not be strong. If it is too strong, it will definitely be detected. Nian. So I might have a chance. No, maybe they haven't found it yet, and I have Gold Finger, and when I do, I may be able to find that power one step ahead of them. Thinking like this, Chen Ang's speed is even faster. Finally, after a quarter of an hour, he arrived at the new mountain area. It looks like a very ancient place. These trees are at least hundreds of years old, and some are thousands of years old. It is estimated that there are many powerful beasts. Li Leiyao said. A trace of nervousness appeared on her delicate childlike face. Chen Ang subconsciously touched Li Leiyao's head to comfort him. Don't panic, I'm here. Hearing this, Li Leiyao looked at Chen Ang's serious profile, and couldn't help pursing her lips and squinting her eyes. She felt inexplicably relieved and felt a sense of security. Chen Ang did not notice this, but moved slightly in his heart, looking at the prompt in front of him with a solemn expression. This place is really not an ordinary danger. Have you considered changing directions? This is the site of a group of fourth-order beasts. Pay attention, it's a group. The habitat of a fifth-order forest yulong is foraging. If you go there, you have a high probability of meeting each other. The place where a trace of the power of the divine dragon split when the power of the gods fell, was buried deep in the ground and was not discovered. You can still pick it up when you go there at this time. A group of demon dragon wolves are hunting. Be careful, they are very powerful and there are a lot of them. They are a little dangerous for you, but if you are careful, you can also destroy each other. Gee, I have to say, maybe it's because of the power of the divine dragon's fall. The strength of the beasts in this area is exaggerated. But fortunately, looking at one of the prompts in front of him, Chen Ang couldn't help showing excitement, and immediately said to Li Leiyao. Go, let's go in this direction first. With a roar, Chen Ang's right hand turned into a dead dragon's arm, and he punched out, killing a second-order giant python beast that came from the forest, and the skull was smashed to pieces. Under the splash of blood, Chen Ang dodged, immediately waved his hand, and put away the corpse of the python. Li Leiyao walked over and said, there are a lot of beasts in this place, and they all seem to be quite strong. Not long after we entered, we encountered 3 beasts. Well, this place is not easy, be careful. Chen Ang asked. Hey, I know, don't worry. Li Leiyao felt that Chen Ang was caring about herself, scratched her face, and said a little embarrassedly. In this regard, if Chen Ang knew what she was thinking, she would only think that this woman was thinking too much. He just didn't want her to die, lest he lose this big client. After all, Li Leiyao's father was a big rich man in Chen Ang's eyes. Chen Ang had a deep memory of the wealthy man who took out the treasures of heaven and earth in a previous transaction. If something happened to Li Leiyao, where would he go to find such a familiar, reassuring, and rich man? Go on, I have a feeling that there should be something I want nearby, and fits my talents. Chen Ang said. Hearing this, Li Leiyao nodded and continued to set off. Before Chen Ang, hints kept emerging. Young man, you are very close to the baby. It's about 300 meters ahead. Be careful of the fallen leaves on the ground, there are poisonous snakes. It's coming soon, it's not far ahead. See that rough jadeite stone on the ground? Yes, it is under the soil where the stone is located. It's finally here. Stepping on the poisonous snake with his feet, Chen Ang looked at the prompt in front of him with joy in his eyes. As for the so-called rough jadeite, he simply ignored it. This thing is useless to him, and some ordinary people in this world collect it. However, in order to avoid being found out by Li Leiyao, Chen Ang pretended to look for it. Li Leiyao asked, Chen Ang, are you sure you are here? Yes, I'm sure, I have a strong instinct. Chen Ang nodded seriously, then moved the arm of the dead dragon, pretending to be puzzled. Could it be under the soil? I used to dig good stuff under the soil sometimes. Having said that, Chen Ang digs directly. Li Leiyao felt that what Chen Ang said made sense, nodded and walked over. I'll help you too. No, you pay attention to other directions beside you, lest you be attacked by the beasts. Okay, don't worry, I'll help you look at the back. Li Leiyao immediately patted his chest and assured, feeling that this task was also very important. Chen Ang kept digging down. 1 meter, 2 meters, 3 meters. When it reached 3 meters, there was a soft sound of clang. Dig it. A happy voice came out of Chen Ang's mouth, which caught Li Leiyao's attention. Curiously, he looked back at the deep hole dug by Chen Ang, and his eyes suddenly showed a surprised expression. Did you really dig it? She thought that Chen Ang would not find anything. As a result, in the pit at this time, a colorful crystal stained with dust lay there quietly emitting a faint light, and it felt extraordinary just by looking at it. Chen Ang picked up the crystal and looked at it carefully. You can hardly feel the weight in your hand, and the most important thing is the breath that this thing exudes, which can almost be recognized as a dragon attribute at a glance. Indistinctly, it seemed that a dragon roar could be heard. Incomplete dragon power crystal. It is said that only after the death of a giant dragon spirit, the divine power in its body will condense into a crystal. It is said that it contains the power of the dead dragon spirit. Generally speaking, this thing is not something you can use at your level, but it happens to be incomplete, and its inner strength has passed away a lot due to the years, and now there is only a little bit left. And because your attributes are compatible, you can swallow it directly. Friendly reminder. Learn to use with the Dragon Breath Ancient pattern, the effect is better. Dragon Power Crystal. Chen Ang's heart moved slightly. Looking at the introduction, his eyes couldn't help but flicker. Transformed by the power of the dragon god after death. It seems that the power has really fallen here. And this thing, I did not expect that it can be used with the ancient dragon breath pattern. In other words, can I comprehend the dragon breath skill with this thing? Thinking of this, Chen Ang couldn't wait to get up. Taking a deep breath, Chen Ang jumped out of the pit and put away the dragon power crystal. Li Leiyao asked, Chen Ang, where are we going next? I'll take a look first. Chen Ang responded with his mouth, and his eyes were looking in the surrounding direction. The direction of the members of the blood sect. Wow, this is the direction of the members of the Wangxing Pagoda. If there is no accident, they will meet in another 3 hours. There is a residual power buried deep in the ground in this direction, but at the same time there is a dead Yulong resting, which is transformed by the residual will and resentment of the once dead dragon spirit. With 5th order strength, you will die in the past. There is a dragon's blood grass growing here. Opening square bracket ... closing parenthesis. Found it. Looking at the prompt in front of him, Chen Ang's heart was filled with excitement. Really, that power is still there. But there is actually a death Yulong guarding it. This is a hassle, although he is very interested in the blood of the dead Yulong. But there is no doubt that this thing is not something Chen Ang can solve at present. At least Chen Ang doesn't think he can defeat the opponent, even with Li Leiyao's help. And many more. Chen Ang seemed to have thought of something, rubbed his chin in thought. It's no surprise that the 10,000 Stars Pagoda and the Blood Sect are here for this. Maybe I can think of a way to take advantage of the fishermen. You can think of a way to lead the people from those two forces. Chen Ang thought to himself. After a while, his eyes brightened, he had an idea in his heart, and said to Li Leiyao. Let's go, Leiyao, let's go this way first. There is a dragon's blood grass over there, a dragon-type material, not to be missed. It is good. Li Leiyao nodded and followed Chen Ang obediently. After picking the dragon's blood grass, Chen Ang took Li Leiyao and walked directly to the location of the dead Yulong. When they were about to reach their destination, Chen Ang and Li Leiyao stopped one after another. Li Leiyao covered her mouth subconsciously, and looked at the huge figure in the distance. Her whole body was tense, and her face showed a look of fear. Dragon, it's a dragon. I saw. Chen Ang nodded firmly. He saw that death Yulong. Huge body, more than 50 meters. Terrible, especially the black scales on his body and the breath of death exuding from his body almost made people tremble. Just looking at it, I felt a threat. But after only a moment of shock, Chen Ang recovered, the corners of his mouth twitched, and he said softly. Leiyao, shoot it with an arrow. What? Li Leiyao was immediately stunned. Blinking his eyes to look at Chen Ang, his small eyes are full of doubts. With just one glance, Chen Ang knew what Li Leiyao was thinking. Why do you want to die? Cough cough. Chen Ang smiled helplessly and said. Don't worry, let's stand farther away, you can just shoot an arrow, there will be no danger. And I just noticed that the Yulong should have something similar to the crystal just now, which is what I need, and this Yulong must be its guardian. Since it's a guardian, it shouldn't be too far away from this area, so let you shoot an arrow to see if it comes, with the distance between us and my speed enough to take you away. Hearing this, Li Leiyao nodded, and nervously grabbed the corner of Chen Ang's shirt with her left hand, and said seriously. Chen Ang, what you said, be ready to run with me at any time. Don't worry, it's fine. Chen Ang gestured okay. Li Leiyao took a deep breath and assumed the posture of drawing a bow and shooting arrows. A golden arrow suddenly condensed, and then, whoosh, broke through the air, like a golden streamer, hitting the dying death in an instant. On Yulong's head. The power of this arrow is definitely not bad, but when it fell on the dead Yulong, it only caused a white mark. I have to say that the dragon's defense is indeed terrible. Even if it is a Yulong, it is still amazing. At the same time, because of this arrow, the resting Yulong opened his eyes, and a powerful burst of mighty power immediately swept the four directions. In an instant, the pair of powerful dragon pupils looked at the two of them. Roar! A deafening roar came directly, and it stirred up dust like a sound wave, rolling in. In the next moment, a jet of black dragon breath gushed out. Wherever it passed, the flowers, trees, stones and soil were corroded at a speed visible to the naked eye, as if they had been drained of their vitality. Dragon breath of death. Chen Ang recognized the dragon's breath, and his pupils shrank. Dragon breath is also different. Different attributes, different dragon breaths, and different effects. The death dragon breath is undoubtedly one of the more powerful dragon breaths. Although it is the dragon breath of Yulong, its power is just as terrifying. Without any hesitation, Chen Ang grabbed Li Leiyao with one hand and quickly fled back, avoiding the dragon breath. After pulling the distance, Chen Ang couldn't help taking a deep breath when he saw the damage caused by the dragon's breath. Where the dragon breath passed, it seemed to turn into an abyss, presenting a dead silence. Li Leiyao's face turned pale because of this, and she worried. Why don't we hurry up? This Yulong is too scary. ... Don't worry, didn't you see that Yulong didn't chase after him? Chen Ang chuckled. Hearing this, Li Leiyao raised her head and looked carefully, looking surprised. It seems to be true. This Yulong, although the burst of breath and even the breath of the dragon is very terrifying, but after careful observation, I found that just now, this Yulong has not moved its body. Apparently, Chen Ang got it right. This Yulong is really the guardian of this place and will not leave that area easily. Then what are we going to do now? The strength of this Yulong is difficult for us to solve, right? Li Leiyao asked. Chen Ang nodded. Death Yulong is the strongest among Yulong after all. If Yulongs such as Shilong and Tulong were assisted by Li Leiyao, Chen Ang would really dare to try it. Death Yulong, but he has no confidence at all. But Chen Ang raised the corner of his mouth and smiled lightly. Don't worry, do you think there will be no one but us in this area? What? Li Leiyao's face was blank. Chen Ang patted the girl's head funny and explained. In such a large area, there may be other candidates, and this Yulong's roar just now is so loud, maybe it will attract other candidates. So next, let's find a place to hide and see the situation. Say it again. It just so happens that the crystal I just got can be used, and maybe it can enhance my strength. At that time, even if no one comes, maybe we can try to see if we can slay the dragon. After listening to Chen Ang's words, Li Leiyao was stunned for a long time. After regaining his senses, he couldn't help but poke Chen Ang's waist with his index finger and muttered. I just found out that you are good or bad. Bad men make girls like you, understand? Chen Ang rolled his eyes angrily. But Li Leiyao blushed inexplicably. In this regard, Chen Ang asked strangely. You have a fever. Leiyao Li, you just have a fever, and your whole family has a fever. In this era, there will still be straight men of steel. Li Leiyao murmured in his heart, rolled his eyes and said. No, it's just a little hot. Okay, let's leave first, lest someone find us later. But, where are we going? Chen Ang didn't answer, but after finding a huge ancient tree, he jumped on the branch with Li Leiyao, waved his dragon claws to cut a hole in the tree, and then blocked it after entering. Then Chen Ang also cut out small windows in 4 directions in the tree hole, so as to observe the outside at all times and cover it with leaves to avoid being discovered. In this way, Chen Ang can observe the situation in different directions at any time, as well as on Yulong's side. Li Leiyao sat in the tree hole curiously, looking at this window for a while, and at that window for a while. Just like a lively rabbit, the 2 ponytails swayed for a while, making Chen Ang want to seize the control. Cough cough. Shaking his head and stopping his cranky thoughts, Chen Ang said. I'll practice first, pay attention to your surroundings. Okay, don't worry, leave it to me. Li Leiyao nodded, patted her chest, trembling very eye-catching. Chen Ang took a deep breath quickly and calmed down his turbulent mood. Then he took out the dragon power crystal in the ancient dragon breath pattern. After swallowing the dragon power crystal, Chen Ang realized that this thing melted in the mouth. It seems to be like a gas, pouring into the body. Suddenly, the blood in his body seemed to boil. In the feint, there is a burst of energy, which is rapidly moving in the blood. A sharp tearing pain swept through the whole body. In his mind, something faintly forced his way in. Refining with mental power, you can get the harvest. A prompt appears in front of you. Li Hao, seeing this, Chen Ang gritted his teeth and endured the severe pain, and began to refine the inexplicable power in his body. A picture appeared in front of him. It was an ancient dragon with a sturdy body, spreading its wings almost covering the sky, turning day into night. Ji Yulong opened his bloody mouth, and a mouthful of dragon breath spewed out. The fiery flames fell like meteorites, and the temperature of the whole world rose. Countless creatures fled in terror under the dragon's breath, but were eventually engulfed. At that moment, it seemed like a natural disaster had come. The power of the dragon's breath is so terrifying. But at the same time as this scene appeared, the power surging in the body seemed to be touched, and the next moment, a roar of dragons roared in Chen Ang's mind. That voice is Gulinli. The people of the blood sect suddenly widened their eyes when they heard the dragon roar from a distance. The woman beside her eyes flickered and said immediately, go there. The source of the power that fell here is the giant dragon god. The power of the god is like a treasure from heaven and earth, and there must be an existence to protect it. As the best guardian, there is no doubt that it is a giant dragon. However, there must be no giant dragons in this secret realm, so it can only be Yulong. Hearing this, the other person looked excited. In other words, where the owner of this voice is that power. Right. Saying so, the blood-robed woman immediately exploded with terrifying speed with the man beside her, turning into a blood-colored afterimage. At the same time, the other side, the two members of the Wangxing Pagoda and Xie Kangning also heard this roar, and their expressions were startled. Immediately afterwards, a member of the Wangxing Pagoda said without hesitation, go there. They set off immediately. The people of the blood sect can think of it, and they can naturally think of it, going in the direction of the sound at the fastest speed. Chen Ang naturally didn't know about this. At this time, Chen Ang was still sitting cross-legged in the tree hole, learning the dragon's breath. Li Leiyao sat on the side obediently obeying Chen Ang's previous instructions, always paying attention to the surrounding situation through various windows, and also paying attention to the death of Yulong. Perhaps it was because Chen Ang and Li Leiyao left, and the dead Yulong rested again. But the next moment, roar! Death Yulong let out a low roar, raised his head suddenly and opened his eyes fixed on Chen Ang's direction. Those pair of pupils startled Li Leiyao, who was just looking in the past. I thought the dragon was going to chase after him. After just watching for a while, he found that the dead Yulong didn't move for a long time, just watching quietly, which made Li Leiyao puzzled. What the hell is this dragon looking at? Could it be because of Miss Ben's beauty that even a dragon can't resist? Li Leiyao thought a little narcissistic in her heart. But then she also felt a little embarrassed, and quickly shook her head and threw out these thoughts, looking back at Chen Ang. Seeing this, Li Leiyao was stunned. At this moment, Chen Ang's body was filled with the breath of death, and this breath of death materialized into a black mist entangling him. However, Chen Ang seemed to be completely immersed and did not notice his own changes at all. Gradually, Chen Ang even opened his mouth involuntarily, and a mouthful of black mist condensed in his mouth, exuding a frightening aura. This is dragon breath. Li Leiyao was shocked. She recognized it and remembered it well. Because this is the death dragon breath that the dead dragon breathed just now. Chen Ang even can. Li Leiyao covered her mouth, excited and at the same time afraid that she would disturb Chen Ang. Not only Li Leiyao was shocked. Even the three old men outside the secret realm who were always paying attention to everything in the secret realm showed a look of astonishment. Dragon breath. Did the old man read it right? Nonsense, aren't we blind yet? How could we be wrong? And it's the dragon's breath of death, which is exactly the same as the dragon's breath of the dead sub-dragon. It seems that this kid's talent is of the attributes of dragon and death, but how about learning the dragon's breath well? This skill is very powerful. Could it be because of that dragon power crystal? Impossible, that dragon power crystal is only incomplete, and does not have this ability at all. At most, it contains some information of the giant dragon god and the incomplete law, and the information is not inheritance, it can be said to be useless. The incomplete law is even more needless to say, it will only stay in his body, and it will show its usefulness after its strength is strong, and it is useless now. It's that ancient pattern. The last old man spoke up. No accident, the ancient pattern that this kid got before is the dragon's breath ancient pattern, and the dragon's breath ancient pattern is probably left by the Yulong who was born here. I said before it was cleared. That period. I see. Hearing this, the other two old people nodded suddenly. It's not surprising in this case, but I didn't expect this kid to be so lucky, so he can also find a big leak. Haha, luck is also a part of strength, good luck means that this kid is lucky. I just don't know if this kid can get the benefits from the people from the blood sect and the Wangxing Tower. If nothing else, this kid wants to take advantage of the fisherman, right? Use the dragon of the death sub BFCH Dragon Yin attracted people from those two forces. Well, it should be this plan, but the strength of the two forces is not bad. Whether it is the blood sect or the people of the Wangxing Tower, the strength is all fourth order. If one fails, they may lose themselves. Let's pay attention first. This kid is a good seedling. If there is any danger, let's take action. He has already shown his worth. He shouldn't die here. If he wants to die, he will die on the cracked battlefield. Extremely. Several old people said and continued to look at the screen. As the three old people said, at this moment, Chen Ang has learned the dragon's breath. And it is the breath of death dragon, a dragon breath with the power of death. Call. With a long breath, Chen Ang opened his eyes, feeling the changes in his body, his eyes couldn't help bursting out with excitement. Is this the real effect of the dragon power crystal? It's a pity, my current strength is too weak, otherwise my combat power will be even more terrifying. He murmured, regretting in his heart. Although he has learned dragon breath, this is not the real benefit brought by dragon power crystals. The real benefit is the incomplete law in dragon power crystal. These are the real good things. Is a more powerful force. But Chen Ang can't master it at present, so these incomplete laws are hidden in Chen Ang's body. It will only be activated when Chen Ang is strong enough. The crystal of dragon power is the crystal of the power of the giant dragon spirit, which also contains part of the dragon spirit's understanding of its own power. To put it bluntly, it can be understood as a memory. Part of the memory is the dragon's breath. That's why, even if the incomplete law cannot be used at present, but with this part of memory, Chen Ang is the only one who can completely learn the dragon's breath. Dragon breath, death. The death dragon breath contains the power of death, which can corrode everything, and the creatures hit by the dragon breath will be burned by the power of death and deprived of life. Getting started. Double. Looking at the information about the dragon's breath in front of him, Chen Ang's eyes flickered. Dragon's breath also has proficiency, just like all skills. However, what the dragon breath improves is not power, but damage. The higher the proficiency, the higher the damage. And the damage of this skill is based on mental power. For now, if Chen Ang activates the dragon's breath, it will cause double the destructive power of his own mental power. Of course, it also consumes mental power. Dragon's breath is very strong, but it also consumes a lot. At least according to Chen Ang's own feeling, using the dragon breath at most 5 times at a time cannot be used again. Chen Ang, have you finished your practice? Li Leiyao's happy voice came from her ears. Hearing this, Chen Ang nodded with a smile. Just as he was about to say something, Chen Ang's ears trembled slightly, and then his eyes flashed with joy. Coming. Li Leiyao blinked and wondered. What's coming? In this regard, Chen Ang raised the corners of his mouth and said with deep meaning. The bait I placed, of course, the fish came. Saying that, Chen Ang raised his hand and put his index finger in front of his lips. Shish. As he spoke, he pointed to the window. Li Leiyao immediately understood what Chen Ang meant, and quickly covered her mouth. Then she came to the window with Chen Ang and looked in the direction of the Death Yulong. Really, I saw at this time, on the side of the Death Yulong, 2 figures appeared. There are 2 figures in blood-colored robes, one male and one female. Blood cult. Chen Ang's eyes flickered. Li Leiyao took out his mobile phone and typed and asked. Who are they? Only 2 people. Can they defeat the Death Yulong? Chen Ang smiled and shook his head and replied. No need to be so careful, we are far away, as long as it's not too loud, they can't hear it. And these 2 are not candidates. Not a student. Well, it came from a force called the Blood Sect. That blood robe should be the symbol of the Blood Sect. Chen Ang reminded. If you see something similar in the future, it's better to run away, this is not a good organization. Blood cult. Ah, I think I heard my dad say it. When Li Leiyao was thinking about it, 3 more figures appeared. When seeing one of the figures, Li Leiyao's eyes widened, showing a shocked expression. Chen Ang, if I read it right, that person seems to be Xie Kangning. Well, you read that right, the one beside him should be the Wangsing Pagoda, an organization from another world. Chen Ang nodded to explain. Li Leiyao couldn't help but look curious. How do you know? Because I have seen it. No wonder. Li Leiyao was stunned, but immediately frowned and said strangely. Aren't we in the secret realm of candidates? How can there be so many people from other forces sneaking in? Who knows? Chen Ang chuckled lightly, without explaining, just said with a little anticipation. Except for Xie Kangning, the strength of those few people is not weak, we just look at it. Li Leiyao nodded obediently and wondered why Xie Kangning was with those people. After the 2 were quiet, they could vaguely hear the voices of the people over there talking. Tisk tisk, I didn't expect you to come too. In the Blood Sect, the coquettish woman looked at the Wangsing Pagoda members and Xie Kangning with a charming smile, and smiled lightly. Speaking of which, I would like to thank you a lot. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't know that there is a residual power of the gods here. But now that we are here, this power is ours. If you don't want to die, how about leaving? Oh, right. Saying that, the woman raised her slender hand, pointed at Xie Kangning and licked her lips. You 2 can leave, but he has to stay. After all, we have to take his head to return to life. Hey, that's right. When the man next to him heard the words, he immediately nodded and grinned loudly. At the same time, he waved his hand, his blood energy exploded, and he held a sledgehammer in his hand and waved it gently. The meaning of threat is self-evident. These 2 people are from the Blood Sect. The woman's name is Yushang. The man is Willow. Heard. Before the 2 Wangsing Pagoda members could speak, Xie Kangning was already pale and roared in anger. Do I know you? Why do you keep staring at me? He couldn't understand why he would provoke people from the Blood Sect. He doesn't know anything about this organization. But after being attacked for the first time and nearly dying, he learned about the horrors of the Blood Sect from his father. It is precisely because of this that Xie Kangning became more and more incomprehensible. He even carefully recalled the existences he had provoked, and none of them were related to the Blood Sect. I have no idea how I got into this organization. It would be fine if there was a reason for the incident, but the key point is that he obviously did nothing, and he felt so aggrieved in his heart. Naturally, Xie Kangning didn't know that someone stood in front of the priest of the Blood Sect and proudly said his name. If he knew, he would have wanted to kill Chen Ang even more. Giggle, who knows? Yushang smiled lightly, blinked her eyes and said softly. Why don't you come here obediently, little brother, how about we take you away later? As she spoke, a pink light flashed in her eyes. Xie Kangning looked sluggish all of a sudden. Okay. As he said that, he walked towards Yushang slowly. Seeing this, a staff member of the Wangsing Pagoda appeared in his hand, and he suddenly shook the ground and let out a helpless sigh, saying, Wake up. Spiritual power exploded and swept out. Xie Kangning snapped back to his senses, his expression dazed. Seeing this, Yushang sneered, stepped forward, her figure disappeared, and she attacked Xie Kangning directly. Blood condensed on her hands, spread on her 5 fingers, turned into sharp blood claws, and tore them apart. The breath of death permeates. Xie Kangning's face was pale, and the terrifying killing intent left him stunned, not knowing what to do for a while. Shelter. Another mage took out his staff and waved it, and a khaki-colored barrier immediately enveloped Xie Kangning. Rumbling. Yu Zhang's blow was completely blocked. Immediately afterwards, one of the 2 mages said immediately, Young Master Xie should hide behind us first, the next battle is not suitable for you. Gollum. Okay, I get it. Xie Kangning nodded again and again, he was not a fool. I don't know where these people in front of me are crushing myself with strength. He didn't want to die, and after agreeing, he quickly ran behind the two mages. Yushang and Lu Mu didn't stand in the way, because they knew that if they wanted to kill Shiekangning and go back to work, they had to deal with these two mages first. More importantly, the dead dragon. That's the number one thing that needs to be addressed. If you don't solve this dead Yulong, I'm afraid you won't get that power. When they first came to this area, they had already noticed the aura in the soil beneath the dead Yulong, which was definitely the aura of a god. 0. You two, don't fight in such a hurry. A mage said calmly. How about I suggest that we deal with this Yulong first? I think you all came for that thing, so what if we kill each other to the end? You kill us, or we kill you, the result is both the same, there is no way to do anything about this dead dragon. So, why don't we join forces to solve this dead Yulong first, and then solve the dispute between us? How? Two mages, one named Edward and the other named Jello. They are the backbone members of the Wangxing Tower. Although the strength is not strong, but good at strategy. Knowing what the focus is now, I don't want to waste my energy on the two blood sects in front of me. The power of the gods is the most important thing. If they can't get it, Lord Truth will not let them go. Thinking of the old man, both mages shuddered subconsciously, their souls trembling. Heard, Yushang and Lu Mu looked at each other, and after a moment of contemplation, they nodded. Yushang raised her eyebrows and asked with a smile. Okay, but what are you going to do about it? It's simple, Edward sighed calmly. Let's do it together, how about it? Yes. Willow has no comments. The eyes of the four of them all turned to the Death Yulong. Perhaps sensing the killing intent, Death Yulong slowly got up, his huge body exuding terrifying pressure. Roar. Under a roar, the sound was like a wave of air, like a torrent. Are they going to join forces? In the tree hole, Li Leiyao was surprised. Chen Ang smiled and nodded. If we don't join forces, how can we take advantage of the fishermen? It's good. The words fall. In Chen Ang's line of sight, the death sub-dragon suddenly opened his bloody mouth and spewed out a jet of black death dragon's breath, and everything went silent. The four of them did not dare to resist, they all avoided and started to attack at the same time. Death to lousy, Lu Mu roared, holding the sledgehammer in both hands and holding it high, he leapt and slammed the hammer down on the dead Yulong's head. The hammer was filled with blood, forming a terrifying blow. Rumbling, this shot down on the dead Yulong, causing the dead Yulong to make a painful sound, followed by a sudden tail flick, and a bang, blasted the willow out, spitting blood in its mouth. Rain of fire. Edward raised his staff and chanted, and a huge magic circle emerged, one after another, gigantic fireballs and rain bombarded towards the Death Yulong. Roar. The Death Yulong roared, raised his head and took a breath of the dragon to meet it. The flames collided with death, turning the sky into two extremes, one crimson and the other pitch black. There was a stalemate for a while. But it is precisely because of this that another mage and Yushang both shot, 057, at the same time. Giggle, Death Yulong, it's really never killed before, I think it should be very delicious, right? Yushang licked her lips and smiled, revealing a coquettish look all over her body, but her body suddenly changed as she spoke, as if she had turned into a demon, with blood-colored wings behind her and magic horns on her head. The pressure of death flew away, and the palm of the hand was condensed with pink light, and a palm fell. The dragon breath of the dead Yulong was interrupted, and under the roar, he swung out a claw, and the terrifying speed blasted Yushang away with one palm. Next moment, swish, there was a cracking sound again. It was Jello. At this moment, a blade of thunder and gust of wind came straight. Puff! This blow actually pierced through the dragon scales of the dead Yulong, inserting a huge hole in its back, and blood continued to gush out from it. Chen Ang's eyes flashed with surprise, and said, "These guys are indeed not weak, but, what's going on with that woman? Demonic talent?" No, Leela shook his head and explained in a low voice. "It should be some kind of demon blood." "You know?" Chen Ang asked in surprise. "Aha." Li Leiyao nodded. "Father told me before that the organization of the blood sect is like an organization created by an evil person for a group of ordinary people who cannot become talented people. It can obtain means comparable to talented people through various cruel means, blood, etc. How strong they are depends on their own blood. I heard from my father that this organization later believed in a certain god, and it became the cancer it is today after it grew stronger, which is difficult to eradicate. Hearing this, Chen Ang's eyes showed thought. Blood. It's kind of weird, but that's it. Although surprised, Chen Ang was not interested in the so-called bloodline. He is a gifted person, and after all, he has to embark on the path of a gifted person. However, if there is more detailed information in the future, it may wish to study some. As long as he can improve his strength without side effects, Chen Ang doesn't mind trying it. With Yushang transformed, Willow also transformed. After getting up from the ground, his body turned into a bull-headed demon covered in flames at a speed visible to the naked eye, exuding a powerful aura, and attacked again with a roar. With a heavy blow, the Death Yulong made the sound of pain again. However, after the Death Yulong smashed it away with one claws, he suddenly turned his gaze on the two life mages, perhaps thinking that the long-range attacks of the two mages were too disgusting, and quickly spit out a dragon's breath. Edward ducked. Jello was too late, so he could only raise his staff abruptly to form a barrier in front of him. However, how can the breath of Death Dragon be so easy to block? A click. The barrier only smashed for 3 seconds, and then the Death Dragon breath directly engulfed Jello like a torrent. There was no time to even let out a scream. When the dragon's breath dissipated, the Mage of Geralt left only a white bone. Seeing this scene, Edward cursed inwardly, but he remained calm on the surface, waved his staff again, and continued to attack the Death Yulong. And Yushang and Lu Mu, who were entangled around Yulong, looked at each other with sneers on their faces. Everything is silent. The three were still attacking the dead dragon. The strength of these three people is very strong. At least from Chen Ang's point of view, among those of the same rank, many talented people encounter existences that will definitely die. Therefore, under the joint attack of the three, the dead Yulong's body soon began to show serious injuries, the dragon's blood continued to spill on the ground, and the roar became weaker. Li Liao asked worriedly, "Should we continue watching? That Yulong was almost killed by them." "Don't worry." Chen Ang's expression remained unchanged, and he said calmly, "Death Yulong, we can grab it if we can, it doesn't matter if we can't grab it, we will continue to wait. Even if Yulong dies, they will still kill each other, now is not the time to go out. I have a feeling that these guys have trump cards. The Death Wyrm is tempting. After all, it represents points. Tier 5, killing at least 10,000 points. But in contrast, your own safety is the most important. The mantis catches the cicada and the oriole is behind. Chen Ang wants to be a oriole, naturally he must have enough patience. In his opinion, now is not a good time to go out. Whether it is the Blood Sect or the Wangxing Pagoda, if they dare to join forces, they will naturally have the confidence to guard against each other. There must be a trump card. Without seeing the bottom card, Chen Ang won't make a move easily. Done. Roar. I saw the Death Yulong roared again, followed by a burst of dragon breath. It has been seriously injured. The breath of the dragon was sprayed directly at Edward. With Jero's lesson learned, Edward didn't have any idea of resisting, and quickly avoided it. However, Yushang and Lu Mu seized this opportunity and rushed towards the Death Yulong after being spared one after another. Boom, boom, each hit and fell. The dragon's breath was interrupted directly. The body of the dead Yulong was heavily bombarded into the ground, setting off dense dust. When the dust cleared, the dead Yulong was already dying, almost dying. Only the slightly undulating body shows that it has not completely died. But even so, the Death Yulong was no longer able to fight. The three of them quickly separated, and on their respective sides, they did not continue to shoot, but stared at each other. Yushang smiled tenderly, staring at Edward sternly, sneering. Mage of Wangxing Pagoda, the next step is our battle, but I think it is better for you to take the initiative to commit suicide, what do you think? Ha ha ha, yes, you simply commit suicide, so as not to waste our energy. Willow laughed aside. Hearing this, Edward looked indifferent and smiled. Why are you two in such a hurry? Besides, I would like to thank you all for helping me solve this Yulong. Otherwise, it will not be so easy for me to solve it alone. Now, the corpse of this Yulong, and even the power of the ground, belong to me, the 10,000 Stars Pagoda. Done. A scroll appeared directly in his palm and shredded it immediately. There was a burst of light in the scroll, and it fell into the air, and an illusory figure emerged. It was an old man who also wore a robe like a starry sky and held a staff. Edward sighed without any hesitation. Really, Master Li, please kill these two blood sect bugs, kill them, and I can get that power for you. Well done, Edward. The mage, who was called the Truth, couldn't help showing a satisfied smile when he heard the words, and then looked sharply at Yushang and Lu Mu. A great pressure hit. Willow looked gloomy. Clone scroll. I remember it only lasts 10 minutes at most, right? So what? Killing you is enough. Don't think you're the only one who has it. Yushang said coldly. As he spoke, a blood-colored crystal ball appeared in his hand. But then, her face changed. How is it possible? Why can't it be used? What do you think? Edward sneered and waved his hand. In the area where they were, 3 beams of light suddenly appeared, turning into an existence like a barrier, covering them. Later, Xie Kangning also came out. Obviously, this is his masterpiece. It was also Edward's arrangement. Chapter 71. Forbidden Area. Both Yushang and Lu Mu's expressions changed. The so-called abstinence is an existence similar to a formation or an enchantment. Once it is unfolded, it will shroud people and cannot leave. The most important thing is that once you are shrouded in abstinence, things like the avatar scroll cannot be used. In other words, they have whole cards, and they can't use them. How does this keep them from panicking? And all of this was actually arranged by Xie Kangning, who they ignored. Neither of them were fools, and they figured it out in an instant. It was because Xie Kangning was too weak that they didn't take it to heart, and that's why they gave Edward a chance. Xie Kangning must have no such idea, must have been instructed by Edward in advance. If I had known earlier, I should have been fighting to get hurt and twisting your neck down, thank you, Kangning. Yushang gritted her teeth, her eyes resentful. Want to kill me? Ha 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 ha, you are the lambs to be slaughtered now, wait to die. When Xie Kangning heard the words, he laughed without the slightest panic. Although I don't know how I provoke you before, but it doesn't matter, just go and die. He's right, you deserve to die. The old man who called it the Truth said calmly, then waved his staff, and a fiery red light appeared. Hum, hum, hum. In the sky in the forbidden area, a magic circle emerged. Immediately afterwards, the huge meteor-like fireballs in the magic circle bombarded the two of them with a violent attitude. The destructive power it contained, even Chen Ang's scalp felt numb when he saw it. Run! Lu Mu roared without any hesitation. He can't last long. This old guy is just a clone. It's impossible to be as strong as the main body, and the energy won't last long. 5 minutes at the latest is enough. Hearing this, Yushang nodded, but there was still resentment in her eyes. When this old man disappears, I will break the heads of those 2 guys with my own hands. The meteorite fell. Rumble. The area was shaking like crazy. Like a big earthquake. Whether it is flowers, trees, or beasts, everyone who is hit will be engulfed by that terrifying destructive power. Lu Mu and Yushang were madly escaping, and did not dare to stop at all. Even if you are injured, you must grit your teeth and continue to run for your life. But the magic of that truth is too terrifying. If the first magic is just an area attack, they can dodge. Then the second magic almost made one's scalp tingle. I saw the truth holding the staff and waved, and there were dense wind blades condensed and emerged in the sky. These wind blades are not the wind blades that Chen Ang could shred with one claw before, they are wind blades that even ordinary third-order talents can easily cut, which shows how terrifying it is. At this moment, with the truth mage waving the staff again. Swish, swish, dot, swish. The sound of breaking the air kept ringing. One after another wind blade fell down. Yushang and Lu Mu couldn't help showing despair in their eyes, but even so, they still gritted their teeth and avoided it. Wow, that's terrifying. Li Leiyao grabbed Chen Ang's wrist tightly and said, her voice full of fear. It's too close, causing her to feel a little bit of substitution. But even Chen Ang felt a dangerous aura. Truth, I don't know how many levels it is, and according to what those 2 people said, this is just a clone, and its strength is far less powerful than the main body, so how terrifying is the real truth? In the video I got from Novice Secret Realm before, I heard Xie Kangning's father say that there is still a kind of existence in our world, called the World Master, who can tear the truth. Then what level is the World Lord? He murmured in his heart. He came into this world, but he saw and heard too little. There are many others that he is completely unaware of. There are many unknowns. But it is precisely because of these unknowns that Chen Ang feels more motivated and stronger to explore those unknowns. Phew. Taking a deep breath, Chen Ang looked forward. Rumble, rumble, earthquakes, dust rises. Chen Ang suddenly narrowed his eyes, staring at the avatar of truth, his eyes flickering. That avatar of truth is about to disappear. The avatar began to appear looming. It should have reached the time, or all the energy was consumed. As predicted, Truth looked back at Edward and said calmly, "My avatar's energy is exhausted. I'll leave it to you next. Is there any problem?" "Of course there is no problem. Please rest assured, Lord Truth." Edward nodded respectfully. Hearing this, a satisfied look appeared on the face of Truth, and the figure completely disappeared. Meanwhile, the dust dissipated. Two miserable figures appeared in front of everyone. It's Yushang and Willow. It's just that at this time, both of them were disheveled. Yushang broke her arm, and Lu Emu's chest had a deep wound, which almost opened her stomach, and blood gushed out. "I'm afraid there is no need to do anything, and he will bleed to his own death in a while." "It's quite miserable," Edward sighed with a smile. Hearing this, Yushang and Lu Mu looked at each other with a hint of death intent in their eyes, and then looked at Edward sharply. Feeling the gazes of the two, Edward waved his staff without any hesitation. Fire Dragon Art. Roar. A magic circle appeared. With a roar, a fire dragon emerged and swept away with fiery flames. "Pass it to me," Yushang said in an icy voice. Waving her wings, she charged directly towards Edward, unafraid to meet the fire dragon. Without any protection, let the flame burn yourself. In other words, knowing that they can't survive, these two must take Edward with them even before they die. Therefore, she didn't care about these injuries at all. As long as she could drag Edward to die together, it was enough. Such a crazy Yushang made Edward's calm face suddenly gloomy, and he couldn't help but curse. He continued to increase his mana and wanted to burn Yushang to death, but he couldn't stop. Once stopped, Yushang will definitely rush to and give him a knife. But even so, he was just as dangerous. "Be careful." Xie Kangning's voice sounded. There was a sound of breaking air behind him, and Edward raised his head suddenly. Willow fell from the sky, holding a sledgehammer in both hands, and blood appeared. The breath of death was overwhelming. "I can't die." Edward gritted his teeth and roared. His staff lit up again, and he cast two magics at the same time. In addition to the fire dragon technique, a barrier appeared on his body. Rumble. Hammer down. A crack appeared on the barrier. "No, impossible." Edward panicked, a look of horror on his face. The blood in Lu Emu's abdomen continued to spurt, but there was a grim look on his face. "We're going to die, but you can't run away, mage, ha 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 ha." He increased his strength, and his blood continued to explode. Xie Kangning was trembling all over. He had never had too many bloody experiences before, and he almost forgot to even make a move when he looked at the scene in front of him. At this time, in the tree hole, Chen Ang looked at Li Leiyao and raised the corner of his mouth. "It's time for us to take advantage of the fisherman." "It is good." Li Leiyao nodded, but suddenly asked in doubt. "That's been recording video. You said this." Chen Ang shook the phone in his hand, raised the corner of his mouth and smiled. "Don't you think this is good evidence that Xie Kangning colluded with the criminal organization? It wasn't just Xie Kangning that he wanted to kill." The voice fell. Li Leiyao suddenly asked with a small face. "Then what shall I do?" "Well, just throw an arrow at the magician, that's all." Chen Ang pointed to Edward and said. Hearing this, Li Leiyao nodded. The two walked out of the tree hole. The two of them were actually wrapped in the forbidden area. But it has always been on the edge, and it can be said that I watched a big drama perfectly. Now is the time for them to appear. Walking out of the tree hole, Li Leiyao drew the bow and shot arrows without any hesitation, and the arrows of the holy light condensed impressively. And Chen Ang, with a sneer, stepped out with his right arm turned into a dead dragon arm, and rushed out with a terrifying speed. "Give me death," Willow growled fiercely. A click. Barrier shatters. The heavy hammer bombarded Edward without hesitation. But at this very moment. "Go away, get out of here." Xie Kangning plucked up the courage and rushed out from the side, jumped suddenly, and blasted Lu Mu with one punch. "Nice job, ha 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 ha." When Edward, who was almost waiting to die, saw this scene, he immediately laughed with excitement like the rest of his life, and even looked at Edward and laughed wildly. You can't kill me, but you deserve to die, ha ha ha. Between words, fire rage, he directly activated the magic power, and as the fire dragon roared, a look of pain appeared on Yu Zhang's face. Finally unable to sprint forward, the vitality began to flow at a frantic speed. The coquettish face is even blackened by the flames. He was already on the verge of death, but now that he was engulfed by the fire dragon technique, he was even more powerless to return to the sky. But before dying, Yu Shang showed a meaningful smile to Edward and said hoarsely, I'm waiting down there, waiting for you. After speaking, Yu Shang died. Edward growled angrily, No, it's impossible, I won't die, who made you think I'll die? He felt unbelievable and inexplicably uneasy. Obviously these two guys are going to die. There is no resistance whatsoever. Why would you say such a thing for no reason? Is it just to upset him? Do not. Impossible. He turned to look at Willow. Lu Emu's injury was heavier than Yu Zhang's from the very beginning, and she was hanging with a breath of fire. At this moment, her breath was gone, and she was on the verge of dying, almost unable to move. But Lu Mu coughed up blood and sneered. You will die too, lousy, go down and wait for you, ha 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 ha. Saying that, he raised his hand and used the last of his strength to hit his heart directly. He committed suicide, apparently not wanting to die at Edward's hands. This scene made Edward even more uneasy. Why the hell? There is no one here who can kill me, I will get everything, why do they say that? He was very puzzled. Next moment, whoosh, a sense of crisis strikes. There was a sound of breaking air behind him. Edward turned his head sharply, only to see an arrow of holy light flying towards him, without any hesitation to dodge. Immediately afterwards, Edward stared in that direction with a cold voice. Who is it? Get out. You're looking in the wrong direction. A cold voice came from behind. Edward looked startled, and when he was about to turn his head, he snorted. Edward's face paled instantly, and he lowered his head to look at the position of his chest and heart. A black dragon scale claw has already pierced through it. Cheng-Ang. Xie Kangning's unbelievable voice also sounded. He looked at the person behind Edward, widened his eyes, and said as if he had seen a ghost. Why are you here? Cheng-Ang's speed is too fast. They had already approached, but only after waiting for Li Leiyao's arrow to attract their attention, they approached from another direction and struck a fatal blow. Neither Edward nor Xie Kangning noticed. Heard, Cheng-Ang sneered. Why can't I be here? I came earlier than you all, and I watched a big play by the way. The sound fell. Cheng-Ang suddenly pulled out his hand, and Edward fell to the ground with a bang. Staring at Cheng-Ang, they realized that the reason why Yu Shang and Lu Mu said that before was because they saw this person. After hearing Cheng-Ang's words, I suddenly thought of the dragon roar at the beginning, and everything understood. His voice was hoarse, knowing that it was impossible for him to live, so he complained. Lord Truth will not let you go. Let's talk when he finds me. Cheng-Ang said indifferently. He didn't care at all. The dragon claws grabbed Edward's body and threw it into the sky. Whoosh! A cracking sound rang out. An arrow struck and pierced Edward's head directly, ending his life. This arrow is naturally Li Leiyao's. After all, he is also a Tier 4 enemy, and if he wants to kill him, he can earn points. Cheng-Ang doesn't care about this, after all, he has a bigger harvest. But before that, Cheng-Ang looked at Xie Kangning. As an enemy, Xie Kangning was already in a cold sweat at this time. He wasn't a fool either, and figured it all out quickly. It's just that after all, it's a flower in a greenhouse, and I haven't even been to the secret realm. At this time, with Edward dying in front of his eyes, only fear remained in his heart. Do you want me to do it? Or commit suicide? Cheng-Ang asked with a smile. Hearing this, Xie Kangning regained his senses and couldn't help but take 2 steps back and grit his teeth. Cheng-Ang, you'd better let me go, or else. How about otherwise? Cheng-Ang sneered. Xie Kangning immediately threatened. Otherwise my father will not let you go. This person is my father's subordinate, and my father still has many such subordinates. Kill me, then you will die. Is it? Cheng-Ang raised his eyebrows. He couldn't help but see no fear on his face, and even showed a smile. That's really a happy thing. Since you make people so happy, I'll send you on your way. After speaking, Chen Ang glanced to the left. If you look carefully, you can see a mobile phone standing there, recording the situation here. By Li Jiao. Xie Kangning's words were also recorded. Also a piece of shit. Before he died, he had to take his father in. This sentence is enough for the official to investigate his father. However, Xie Kangning naturally didn't know this, and Chen Ang didn't have any idea of explaining it. He waved his dragon claw and took a step forward. With a swoosh, Chen Ang's figure disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Xie Kangning. Death to me, Xie Kangning responded quickly, and slammed his fist at Chen Ang. His right arm turned into a stone arm. But Chen Ang's eyes were indifferent. He waved his dragon claw easily to block Xie Kangning's fist, and pulled back sharply. Rip! An arm was torn off abruptly. The screams came from Xie Kangning's mouth. Ended, Chen Ang said calmly, waved his hand again, and the dragon claws pressed together and aimed at Xie Kangning's heart, piercing it in an instant. This kid really gave him the benefit of a fisherman. Out of secrecy, an old man looked at everything on the screen and couldn't help clapping his chin in admiration. In fact, they thought Chen Ang could succeed before. But whether it can be successful or not is still unknown until the results come out. So it's hard to say. But now that he saw the result, he was still a little shocked and amazed. The old man beside him smiled and said, "It's just what was expected. This young man is not easy, he is way beyond his peers. Let's not talk about other things, just that kind of courage is very difficult. The second order dares to murder the fifth order Death Yulong. Who has this kind of courage in this session? Even the little guys in the capital dare not dare. Maybe they will be envious, but they will definitely be unwilling to leave because they know that their strength is not good. This is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that this kid has the idea of attracting others to work for him from the beginning, and he is always ready to catch the cicadas with the mantis, and the oriole is behind, to take advantage of the fisherman. And he doesn't know that there are people from the blood sect and the 10,000 stars pagoda nearby. What does this mean? It means that this kid is not only courageous, but also has a plan. His initial idea may not be to let the people from the blood sect and Wengsing pagoda deal with the Death Yulong for him, but those candidates, even if those candidates are not strong, as long as they can delay him and let him find opportunities to spy in the dark. You also know that this kid's strength is beyond the same level, and as long as he finds a good opportunity, he can also kill the dead Yulong. One hit. Yeah, the last old man heard the words and nodded in agreement. Originally, they admired Chen Ang very much. Now, such an analysis is even more impressive. Their status is extraordinary and their strength is extraordinary. Therefore, the main reason why Chen Ang's aptitude makes them appreciate is the future that Chen Ang can bring to them. In other words, from what Chen Ang is doing now, they can get a preliminary glimpse of how bright the future of Chen Ang is. That's why I appreciate it and admire it. Chen Ang naturally didn't know about this. If I knew it, I would probably snicker in my heart. Where did he not know about the blood sect and the 10,000 stars pagoda? It was because he knew that he deliberately guided the roar of the dead dragon. It can only be said that the truth of the brain supplement is the most terrifying. Of course, perhaps knowing that, Chen Ang wouldn't care. After all, Chen Ang was in the midst of joy at this time. Looking at the dying Yulong in front of him, the corners of Chen Ang's mouth twitched. Death Yulong's mouth moved, almost no resistance, and he couldn't even lift his body. At the beginning, he was beaten to death by those 4 people, and then faced a wave of bombardment by the avatars of the Truth Mage, which means that Yulong has high resistance to magic, and he would have died a long time ago when he changed to another beast. Where can he wait until now? This also led to the death of the Yulong, cheapening himself. After all, if there is no accident, in the end, the life of this dead BFCH Yulong will end in the hands of Xie Kangning. It's time to send you on your way, Chen Ang said in a low voice. His right hand turned into the arm of a dead dragon, and without any hesitation, he aimed at the wound on the dead dragon and launched an attack. Under the urging of the tearing claw, a black light appeared. Puff! Powerful blow. Under this blow, the dying Yulong, who was already on the verge of death, could no longer support it and died completely. Chen Ang opened his points and glanced at it, showing such a look as expected. 1. Diwen City, Chen Ang, points, 23150. 2. Dukui City Tongxi, points, 13420. 3. Diling City, LV Yang, points, 11100. 4. Dawei City, Zhongshui, points, 8400. 5. Disheng City, Qi Shousheng, points, 7900. As I expected, the 5th order beast has increased by 10,000 points. And with Edward, Chen Ang's points are now almost 10,000 points more than the 2nd place. It is estimated that this guy named Tong Shi is hunting wild beasts these days, trying to regain the 1st place, but he never thought that Chen Ang's points would increase so much in an instant, right? In fact it is. Somewhere in the secret realm at this time. Tong Shi had just dealt with a vicious beast, wiped the blood on his face, opened the scoreboard and glanced at it, and was immediately stunned. Unfortunately, Chen Ang did not know this time. After closing the standings, Chen Ang immediately waved his hand and put away the dead Yulong's body. This is good stuff. With this dead Yulong, I have all the materials for my evolution, and I can evolve at any time. In addition to this, there are many other precious materials that can be obtained. Many people in this world like to be dragon slayers. Why? Because there are so many good things in a dragon. It should be noted that the body of the dragon is not only made of the same material, but all parts can be used as materials. If you are lucky, you can even get rich. But these can only be seen later. Next, there are still many harvests waiting for him. Chen Ang, here are the space bags and space rings on those people, I have collected them all for you. Li Yao came over with a space bag and 4 space rings, and handed them all to Chen Ang. Chen Ang was not polite, and he looked at it after taking it. Spiritual power penetrated into it, and soon, a scroll appeared in Chen Ang's hand. Hey, isn't this the avatar scroll from before? Seeing the scroll, Li Liao's eyes widened in surprise. Chen Ang shook his head. No, this is another kind of scroll. Projection scrolls are generally scrolls used for long-distance cross-border contact. They can be fixed and connected to a certain existence, and they can be used by tearing them apart. Looking at the prompt in front of him, Chen Ang shredded the scroll. A spot of light appeared and landed in front of Chen Ang, slowly condensing into a familiar figure. Is the Mage of Truth. Edward, I think you've. Who are you? The Truth Mage originally thought that Edward was contacting him, and he was in a happy mood. But when he saw Chen Ang and Li Liao who were unfamiliar in front of him, he frowned and said solemnly. Where's Edward? Well, here it is. Chen Ang kicked the corpse beside his feet. The Truth Mage looked at Edward's lifeless body, and suddenly burst into anger, with killing intent in his eyes. How dare you kill him? Boy, you are courting death. Chen Ang sneered. It's just a projection, don't threaten people, who do you think you can scare? Hearing this, the Mage of Truth was even more angry. But within a few breaths, he calmed down again, squinting his eyes and speaking coldly. I really can't kill you. But, boy, Wang Xingta wants to kill a person, no matter who this person is, he can't escape death. Yes, Chen Ang didn't take it seriously. Someone said something similar last time, but I'm still alive and well. HMPH, don't compare the Wang Xing pagoda with those ants. Mage of Truth said coldly. As truth, it is your honor that I am willing to give you a chance. Find the power in this area and give it to me, I can accept you as my direct disciple. How? At that time, you will become a noble mage. Noble mage, Chen Ang sneered and said. Sorry, not interested. That laughter caused a terrifying chill in the eyes of the Truth Mage, and the expression on his face was even more gloomy, gritted his teeth and said word by word. Do you want to die? For this, Chen Ang grinned and responded with a sneer. You can't kill me. Oh, very good, very good. The Mage of Truth laughed in anger. I remember you. Human, if you are brave enough, you can tell me who you are, or do you dare not? This sounded a bit familiar. Chen Ang touched his chin and thought for a while, then looked at Master Truth and said with a smile. Old thing, then you remember it, Diwen City, Zhao Sibo. Stare, Li Liao, who had been watching quietly, couldn't help looking at Chen Ang when she heard the name. There was confusion on that delicate face. Zhao Sibo, good, very good, old man remember. Before Mage Truth finished speaking, Chen Ang waved his hand directly, and the projection disappeared. He was too lazy to listen to the nonsense of the Truth Mage. When he was about to dig the treasure next, he noticed Li Liao's strange eyes beside him. Chen Ang asked in confusion. Why are you looking at me like that? Why do you say you are Zhao Sibo? Li Liao asked in surprise. In this regard, Chen Ang said with a light smile. Why, he's my enemy. Like at the beginning, Xie Kangning was also my enemy and wanted to kill me, so I provoked the blood sect, and an old guy asked me who I was just like the truth mage just now, and I said I was Xie Kangning. Anyway, it's my enemy, and I don't want to cheat. After thinking about it seriously, Li Liao nodded slightly. No problem. It's okay, you fool. Is this too scary? Fortunately, I am not Chen Ang's enemy. Just thinking about it made Li Liao feel terrible. If he is Chen Ang's enemy, then Chen Ang will be crazy to cause trouble outside, and he will say that he is Li Liao when he provokes a big boss. Isn't he sitting at home and the pot comes from the sky? Maybe he woke up from a sleep and found that all the enemies outside the door were unwarranted. That picture, just thinking about it, Li Liao couldn't help shivering. But, not right either. How could oneself become Chen Ang's enemy? Thinking of this, Li Liao suddenly felt relieved. He didn't know what he was thinking, and there was a smirk on his face. Silly, looking at Chen Ang, he raised his right-hand chemical knife and hit Li Liao on the head. Ow! Li Liao made a sound of pain, and covered her head to regain her senses. Why hit me? If I don't beat you again, I'm afraid you will become an idiot. And don't waste time, you pay attention to your surroundings. I feel that there is something underneath, dig it out as soon as possible, let's get out of here as soon as possible. As for other harvests, you have to wait until you leave here and find a safe place to check them one by one. Now the power of the gods is the focus. All right. Li Liao nodded obediently and immediately alerted the surroundings. And Chen Ang is directly excavating. 1 meter, 2 meters, 3 meters, 4 meters. There are also prompts that keep popping up. Come on, you are very close to the treasure. Trust me, keep digging, 4 meters has just started, but it's not far. The remaining power of the dragon gods, go crazy and dig it. There are about 2 meters left. Only 1 meter is left. Clang, a soft sound. Chen Ang got it. Under the soil, 7 colored rays of light radiated out, soft and warm, making Chen Ang's face unable to help showing an excited look. The source of light is a crystal. Chen Ang recognized it as the crystal of dragon power. It's just bigger than the one I got before, and it looks more complete. Even exudes an inexplicable deterrent. There is no doubt that this is a complete dragon power crystallization, not incomplete. But in addition to the dragon power crystal, there is a piece of wreckage beside it. Or rather, flesh and blood. Flesh wrapped in colorful shimmer. When he saw this piece of flesh and blood, Chen Ang couldn't help but widen his eyes, and his breathing became short. The remains of the sacred dragon gods are buried deep in the soil all year round. Due to the erosion of the years, most of the essence and divine power have been dissipated, and only a trace remains. For many people, it is useless to eat, and it is a pity to abandon them. It is tasteless, but it is very suitable for you who have awakened the dragon attribute talent. Taking it can greatly enhance the strength of the physical attribute and the dragon attribute talent. Hey, this turned out to be the remains of a god's body. Seeing this piece of flesh and blood, Chen Ang was stunned. I didn't know there was such a good thing in the ground. But then he felt pity. It is a pity that this wreckage has only retained a trace of its original effect due to the erosion of time. But thinking about it carefully, Chen Ang accepted the reality again. If it still retains 100% of the effect, I am afraid that it will not be obtained by myself, and it has been taken away by the official. The most important thing is that it really has a 100% effect, and I don't think I can use it. I will be bursting after a bite. After all, it is the flesh and blood of the gods. That is, this kind of thing that is almost eroded by time and years is just right for me. Did you dig it? What is this? Li Liao looked over curiously and asked. Chen Ang nodded, put it away with a wave of his hand and jumped out of the pit. Unfortunately, I dug it, but unfortunately you can't use it. This thing is useful for talents who have awakened the talent of the dragon attribute. It is a pity for him. After all, Li Liao is also his helper. Chen Ang can also be regarded as a clear grudge. People who have helped themselves will definitely not be able to eat alone. Although Li Leiyao got 5,000 points with his help before, the 5,000 points are far inferior to what he has gained. Therefore, Chen Ang still wanted to make up for Li Leiyao. Li Leiyao noticed Chen Ang's thoughts and smiled indifferently. It's okay, I can help you. Hearing this, Chen Ang was stunned for a moment. Staring at Li Leiyao's delicate face, she didn't speak for a long time, and she didn't know what she was thinking. It wasn't until Li Leiyao's face was blushing that she was about to steam. Chen Ang returned to his senses and smiled, thanks. 0.0. No, don't be so polite. Li Leiyao was a little embarrassed. Haha, no matter what, you have helped me, I owe you a favor, and you can come to me if you need anything in the future. Chen Ang agreed after laughing. Hearing this, Li Leiyao's eyes showed a look of joy. Really? Certainly. Chen Ang nodded seriously. Seeing this, Li Leiyao was even happier. When others are happy with Chen Ang's favor, they may think that they will encounter difficulties and troubles in the future, and they can ask Chen Ang for help. But Li Leiyao had no such idea at all. Instead, he was jumping up and down happily, and in his mind began to think what to do with this favor to invite Chen Ang. Want to go shopping? How about watching a movie? Or candlelight dinner? Ah, Li Leiyao, what are you thinking? These are obviously only things that lovers can do. Chen Ang just makes you feel safe. How can you let Chen Ang do these things with you? Li Leiyao quickly patted her blushing and hot face to calm herself down, so as not to be seen by Chen Ang. She changed the subject and asked, are we leaving now? Well, it's time to find a place to check the harvest. Chen Ang nodded. This college entrance examination, he gained a lot. In just 2 or 3 days, he was already satisfied. Next, it is enough to lock the points in the first place. After leaving that area, Chen Ang, as always, took Li Leiyao to find an ancient tree nearby, cut a tree hole and drilled in. A man and a woman are alone in a hole. But Chen Ang just wants to see the harvest. Tisk tisk, these guys are really rich. Chen Ang carefully looked at the 4 space rings in his hand. They belonged to the blood sect and the Wangxing pagoda. There were indeed many good things in them. But there are really not many things that can be useful to Chen Ang. Mainly like the member space rings of the Wangxing pagoda, most of them are books, maybe the mages prefer to study. There are basically all kinds of body structures, handwriting research, and magic books. In addition to books, but also some materials. And it's a material that Chen Ang can't use. Metals such as mithril, or some other world's magic core, or some medicinal materials needed for medicine. It can be said that these things are useful in other worlds, and they are also useful in this world, and they can be sold for money. But not very useful to Chen Ang. In the space ring of the members of the blood sect, it is even more outrageous. Basically all kinds of blood. In the space ring of the woman named Yushang, there were all kinds of heads, including human heads, and a hole was specially opened in each head. That is, Chen Ang. If Li Leiyao was asked to check the space ring, he would be scared and sick. Of course, there are also some other materials, even breathing methods and thoughts, but there is really no useful material for Chen Ang. So these things can only be sold for money. Of course, that's why Chen Ang said those guys were rich. Because if it is sold for money, at least it can be sold for about 1 million. As for Xie Kangning's space bag, it's just average. Some material. Then TM is a small umbrella. I don't know what the guy thought. He put a box of small umbrellas in his pocket, leaving Chen Ang speechless. Forget it, fortunately there are other gains. Chen Ang shook his head and looked at his space ring. Yulong's corpse was divided into several parts by Chen Ang and placed in different space bags. After all, it is too big to fit a space ring. And there are really many good things in the body of the dead Yulong. At least it can be used as a material. Chen Ang took a look. There are 3 scales. There is 1 dragon tooth, a dragon horn, a dragon claw. There are also 3 drops of blood essence and 5 drops of heart blood. Harvest. In addition to the hard work that Chen Ang needs, other materials can be sold for about 1 million. And the biggest gain, of course, is that the wreckage of the god's body has crystallized with the complete dragon power. Long Li crystallization aside, Chen Ang took out the wreckage of the deity's body, a large piece, about 10 pounds. A bonfire was set up, and Chen Ang started roasting directly. Is this thing edible? Isn't it poisonous? Li Leiyao naturally knew about this piece of meat, but was still very puzzled. After all, it's been buried in the ground for a long time, hasn't it? Your focus is peculiar. 5. Chen Ang rolled his eyes. Shouldn't the point be that this is flesh and blood? Why, isn't it normal that I'm paying attention? Li Leiyao said a little embarrassedly. Chen Ang shook his head amusingly and said, it's not poisonous, and it has improved my strength, but unfortunately it only helps me. All right, Li Leiyao nodded. But then, he said again. But don't worry, even if you are poisoned, I can save you. I still have an antidote in my space ring. Why do I feel like you want me to be poisoned? Chen Ang slandered in his heart. In the chat room, time passes. The meat is cooked quickly. After all, it is dragon meat, and it is also the dragon meat of the divine dragon. In order to ensure the pure taste, Chen Ang did not even add condiments. But after roasting, it also exudes a tempting aroma. Chen Ang swallowed his saliva and started eating directly, ignoring the boiling heat. Before eating, Chen Ang also handed Li Leiyao a piece of meat for her to roast. It was dragon meat, but it was the meat of a dead yulong. Li Leiyao could still eat it. Hi, it's hot, but it tastes so good, it melts in your mouth. And, so cool. Chen Ang was talking while eating. Every bite of meat I swallowed into my stomach made the blood in my body feel hot. The skin reddens at a rate visible to the naked eye. Even the dead dragon arms began to emerge unknowingly. Long Wei subconsciously disseminated. Chen Ang was unstoppable, eating more and more comfortably. It wasn't until all the food was eaten that a sense of drowsiness struck. Is the real effect coming? Chen Ang thought in his heart, and quickly asked Li Leiyao. Leiyao, I may have to sleep for a while, so be careful. Ah, are you all right? Li Leiyao had a worried look on her face. It's okay, you should be more vigilant. Okay, I get it, go to sleep. Li Leiyao nodded obediently. After hearing this, Chen Ang finally couldn't bear it any longer, fell down and fell asleep. The sound of breathing came quickly. Listening to the voice, Li Leiyao roasted the dead yulong meat, looked at Chen Ang's side face curiously, and didn't know what he was thinking of. His face was blushing under the firelight. Also started to giggle. Gai. Time unknowingly began to pass. In the blink of an eye, a new day has come. This is the 4th day since entering the secret realm. Early morning, Chen Ang opened his eyes in a daze, feeling a tingling pain in his head, and subconsciously raised his hand to hold his forehead and pinched it. Immediately afterwards, Chen Ang took a deep breath of cold air in pain. Why did my power suddenly become so great? He muttered. I just used the same force as before, but I pinched myself in pain. Outrageous. But soon, Chen Ang seemed to think of something, his eyes lit up, and he quickly moved his heart to check his attributes. Chen Ang. Body. 459 pull, 500. Force. 450 pull, 500. Min. 451 extreme, 500. Essence. 447 extreme, 500. Talent 1. Dead Dragon Arm Characteristics. Armor Break, Dragon Muscle 4 times the strength increase, stealing life. Talent 2. Recovering Body, Blood Spring, Quick Healing. Skills. Tearing Claw, Perfect, Double Strength Increase, Need to improve proficiency, Fighting Technique, Dragon Power. Cultivation Method. Basic Ancient Yoga, Holy Dragon Breathing Method. I rely on. Chen Ang was shocked when he saw his attribute panel for the first time. Not only attributes, but more importantly, dragon muscles. The strength of my dragon muscle was doubled, but now, it has doubled directly. Really terrifying. This alone, even if the attributes have not improved, has brought a huge increase in combat power to Chen Ang. Is this the flesh and blood of the gods? This is the flesh and blood of the gods with only a trace of effect left. Chen Ang couldn't help but murmured, with a hint of longing in his eyes. I want to eat meat. Eat more god meat. Chen Ang was shocked. Unexpectedly, the characteristics of talent will be enhanced. And the enhancement is still so outrageous. Quadrupling the strength, how terrible is this? With just this increase alone, Chen Ang can even say that if he encounters a dead yulong again, he can consider fighting against it. And as Chen Ang's strength continues to improve, this increase will become more and more terrifying. After taking a deep breath, Chen Ang glanced at Li Leiyao, who was sleeping with his back against the wall. After thinking for a while, a blanket appeared and covered Li Leiyao with a wave of his hand. Then Chen Ang took his original seat and took out the Dragon Power Crystal. The complete Dragon Power Crystal. I don't know what kind of improvement it will bring. Chen Ang looked forward to it, swallowed it all in one bite, and it melted in the mouth. Immediately afterwards, that familiar feeling swept through the body. Chen Ang closed his eyes, and faintly felt a change in his body. It was like a dragon roaring in his mind. Even pictures began to emerge. The giant dragons kept flashing in their minds, they spread their wings and breathed dragon breath. Various angles, all kinds of power. There are also various properties. All of them let Chen Ang take a closer look. Before you know it, 15 hours passed. Originally a new day came in the early morning, and in the immersion of Chen Ang, the time came to the afternoon in a blink of an eye. It was at this moment that Chen Ang slowly opened his eyes, and there was a touch of excitement in his eyes. It's amazing, the complete Dragon Power Crystal has such an effect. But unfortunately, the real use is useless to me at present, and can only be temporarily stored in the body. Speaking, Chen Ang opened his mouth, and a mouthful of death dragon breath condensed in his mouth, but compared to before, this breath of dragon breath exudes an inexplicable aura that makes people palpitate, and it becomes even more terrifying. Because of his dragon breath, he has been greatly improved. Dragon breath perfect level, triple damage increase. This is the long way information that Chen Ang has now. That's right, it's complete. This is the improvement brought by the complete Dragon Power Crystal, which is simply terrifying and unbelievable. But this is only part of the effect of the Dragon Power crystallization. The real important thing is the understanding of the laws stored in it. That is a good thing. Dragon Power Crystal can also be called Divine Power Crystal, which contains the understanding of God's own power. If one day Chen Ang's strength is improved to the point where he needs to be able to understand the law, this thing is also a treasure. It is a pity that at present those law comprehensions are hidden deep in Chen Ang's body and are in a sleeping state. Only when Chen Ang needs to comprehend, will it be activated. Maybe that day will come soon. Chen Ang thought to himself, the corners of his mouth twitched, he had enough confidence in himself. Phew. After taking a deep breath, Chen Ang stopped thinking about it. Next, you have to get busy with the college entrance examination. Look up to your side. Li Leiyao was roasting meat, perhaps feeling Chen Ang's gaze. Li Leiyao also turned his head and looked over, and after meeting Chen Ang's eyes, he showed a bright smile. Chen Ang, have you finished your practice? It just so happened that the meat was cooked, so here it is for you. She handed over a piece of barbecue. Chen Ang was not polite, and he was really hungry when he touched his stomach, so he nodded and took a big mouthful of food. After eating and drinking, Chen Ang said, "Let's go first while the sky is still dark and there is some time." Are you going to start exploring? Li Leiyao said excitedly. Although she didn't say it, staying in a tree hole all the time had already started to get bored. Chen Ang nodded with a smile. The two walked out of the tree hole after extinguishing the bonfire. Li Leiyao asked in anticipation immediately. Which way shall we go? Don't worry, wait for me to see. Chen Ang looked in different directions around him, and prompts appeared in front of him. In this direction, there is a tribe of goblin that has just fallen. Among them, there is a 100-year-old lotion collected by goblins. Taking it can strengthen the body. There is a group of fierce beasts gathered here, and the strength is 3rd order and 4th order. A special item in this direction. There is still 1 hour to lift the ban, and there is also a Yonglinguo. The lush ancient forest, you will not encounter anything in this direction for the time being. Special items. Chen Ang was surprised, but then thought, an hour should be enough. Chen Ang pointed in one direction and said to Li Leiyao, "Come on, let's go this way first." Good. Li Leiyao nodded and had no opinion. That is the direction of the goblin tribe. Chen Ang intends to get the Centennial Clock lotion first, which is also a treasure that cannot be missed. Running all the way, the two quickly reached their destination. It's a goblin, so ugly. Looking at the green figures in front of her, Li Leiyao frowned with disgust. Chen Ang smiled and said, "Let's get rid of these goblins, it's a curse to keep them, and maybe there will be good things in the tribe." Okay, this one can be. Li Leiyao heard the words, and immediately agreed to come down and try. Let's shoot together and see who kills the most. You sure? Chen Ang looked strange. Ah, cough, just kidding. Li Leiyao shook her head quickly, obviously remembering Chen Ang's strength, showing an embarrassed expression. Chen Ang shook his head and laughed and said, "Okay, let's go together. It is good." Li Leiyao didn't talk nonsense. A holy light arrow condensed immediately, followed by a whoosh sound, like a golden rainbow light. Puff! A goblin's head was directly pierced, and green blood spattered. The death of the tribe caused the other goblins to suddenly let out angry voices. There were even 2 goblin warriors or chieftains, and they looked at them angrily. After discovering the 2, they waved their weapons and roared, and charged with a large number of goblins. The huge number made Li Leiyao subconsciously worried, but when he saw Chen Ang beside him and the indifferent expression on his face, he calmed down again. It's good, just let me try the power of the dragon's breath. Chen Ang murmured, there are a lot of goblins. But the weak existence, in front of the real strong, the number, cannot cause any threat. Taking a deep breath, Chen Ang stared in the direction of the goblin, then opened his mouth suddenly, the death dragon breath condensed, and then spit out. In an instant, the black dragon breath like black mist blasted away like a black torrent. Wherever he passed, everything was annihilated and burned. Even the breath of death dragon has the characteristics of flame. But even more terrifying is the deprivation of life. It was obvious to the naked eye that when a goblin was engulfed by the breath of a dead dragon, it instantly turned into a bone. The power of the death dragon's breath shows its horror. The torrent of dragon breath engulfed almost all the goblins in an instant. They can't even escape. When the dragon's breath dissipated, only a few bones were left on the ground, and the dead couldn't die any longer. Okay, great. Li Leiyao's eyes widened, her face full of shock, and when she looked at Chen Ang, there seemed to be little stars in her eyes. Chen Ang laughed. Fortunately, it is also possible to have such a big improvement because of the precious treasures of heaven and earth. Having said that, Chen Ang shook his head and smiled. The goblins are all settled, let's go to the tribe first. Okay. Liao nodded and followed Chen Ang into the tribe. Compared with Li Leiyao's careful search, Chen Ang kept searching through Goldfinger. These are all the bones of the goblins left. Are you sure you want to search here? This is where the goblins solve their physiological hygiene. Trust me, don't look at it, you will be disgusted. There are only goblins' private collections, which are all gadgets, not worth mentioning. Yes, it is here, the centennial emulsion you need. Found it. Seeing the prompt in front of him, Chen Ang's eyes lit up and walked over immediately. In front of them are large stones like stone troughs, with about 1,000 liters of milky white liquid flowing in them, exuding a faint fragrance. There is no doubt that this is the centennial lotion. However, Chen Ang was still a little worried and did not dare to take it away immediately. Goblins are so dirty, won't they contaminate this thing? Chen Ang, who kept an eye on it, moved in his heart and looked up. Your concern is very reasonable, but in fact these centennial lotions are very clean and have no pollution. After seeing the prompt, Chen Ang was relieved. Then he waved his hand, took away half of the inside, and shouted to Li Leiyao. Leiyao, come here and find something good, put it away. What is this? Li Leiyao asked curiously. 100 years Bell emulsion, like Tiansai de Bao, can strengthen the body. Chen Ang popularized knowledge. Li Leiyao was surprised and asked again. Don't you want? I have already taken half of it, and the rest is yours. After hearing this, Li Leiyao nodded, took these away and became curious. Where are we going next? 5. Go this direction. Chen Ang pointed to a place with special items that he had seen before. The two moved on. Chen Ang remembered one thing, said. By the way, Leiyao, I want you to do me a favor. What, you say? Hearing that she could help Chen Ang, Li Leiyao's eyes lit up and she was very excited. In this regard, Chen Ang said helplessly. Shoot me with your arrow of light. What? Li Leiyao was stunned. Why bother to die? Chen Ang laughed. Don't worry, don't think about it, it's just a feature of mine that needs your help to activate. I see. After hearing this, Li Leiyao was relieved. She thought that Chen Ang was thinking about suicide. But even though it was an activation feature, she was still a little worried. Is there really nothing wrong? Don't worry, believe in my strength. Okay then. Seeing the confidence on Chen Ang's face, Li Leiyao hesitated for a while, but nodded, and immediately shot an arrow of holy light. When the arrow of holy light landed on Chang'an only felt a little pain, and then the arrow seemed to turn into holy light and melted into his body. The pain is still there, just no harm. Chang'an murmured. To activate this feature is really speechless. How? Are you all right? I'm fine. Chang'an shook his head, motioned to Li Liao not to worry, and then felt it. Fine. Just one arrow of holy light is not enough to reach the limit. At least 4 or 5 arrows are needed. Moreover, Chang'an wanted to see how it would be released after reaching the limit, so he let Li Liao continue to shoot. After the first situation, Li Liao didn't worry anymore. Shoot with arrows while advancing with Chang'an. If this is shown to others, it is estimated that they will be stunned. Some people even have to think, what kind of affection can endure one arrow after another? After reaching the destination, Li Liao just shot another arrow. Chang'an's tolerance has also reached its limit. Call. Taking a deep breath, Chang'an grinned, clenched his fists with both hands, immediately aimed in one direction, and threw a punch. No features are used, but after the punch was blasted out, an invisible wave erupted. A loud bang. It was as if a storm swept across the front. A row of trees in front of him broke directly. Good. This scene made Chang'an nod in satisfaction. What is your ability? Li Liao was stunned. It always feels that Chang'an's abilities are one after the other, making her unable to help but grow her mouth. Chang'an turned back and explained. Oh, don't be surprised, it's my second innate ability. Second talent, not surprised. How could this not be surprising? Li Liao's eyes widened again. It was subconscious, and I couldn't help it at all. Although she has also broken through to the second rank, she has absolutely no clue about the second talent. After all, it takes time to consider the right talent. The choice of the second talent is usually to match the first talent to better display the combat power. But even so, she hasn't made a decision yet. And why haven't I seen your talent? Li Liao asked. Chang'an nodded. It's normal that I haven't seen it before, because it has evolved and belongs to an unknown root. Also, has it evolved? Li Liao was shocked, but after the shock, there were more little stars in the eyes of Chang'an. I couldn't help but feel a little adoration in my heart. As a gifted person, I know how difficult it is to evolve into an unknown talent. But Chang'an couldn't help but say that the first talent has successfully evolved. And even the second talent has evolved. You are too powerful, it would be great if I could be like you. She said in amazement. Chang'an scratched his head, although he was a little uncomfortable, he could sense Li Liao's eyes. How to say, it's a little cool to be looked at by a cute girl like this. Therefore, Chang'an said with a smile. Explore more, and sooner or later the kings will be fine. When ordinary people hear this, it is estimated that they will say, I believe in you. But Li Liao nodded hurriedly, with great trust. However, Chang'an didn't bother about this topic, but looked forward with a faint smile on the corner of his mouth. Okay, let's wait a while, there's a special item here. Li Liao followed Chang'an's gaze, and sure enough, he saw a special item hanging on a tree in front of him, as well as a treasure of heaven and earth. Only at the same time, there is a light mask that covers the bow. Exactly, this time can take the Centennial Clock Lotion. The distance will reach the limit attribute soon, and then the dead dragon arm will be able to evolve. Chang'an murmured in his heart. For the talent ability of the third stage, it can be said that the expectations are extremely high. After talking to Li Liao, Chang'an sat cross-legged and took out the Centennial Lotion and drank it in one gulp. Not to mention, the entrance is sweet, like drinking a drink, and it's quite delicious. One sip, there is a wonderful feeling. It's as refreshing as a sip of a frozen drink in the hot summer. Without wasting time, Chang'an even practiced the Holy Dragon breathing technique. During the breath, the blood in the body, the periosteum and the 5 internal organs vibrated, as if a dragon roared, causing Li Liao next to him to keep looking at him. Is this what my father said about breathing? It looks great. Unfortunately, Dad said that there is currently no breathing method suitable for me. Chang'an is so good, I don't know when I will be like him. Li Liao muttered, and took out the Centennial Lotus Lotion and drank it, sitting cross-legged beside Chang'an and quietly improving her strength. With the practice of breathing, Chen Ang can clearly feel the increase in body strength. But unfortunately, he will not really do two things. After all, if Chen Ang can do two things with one mind, Chen Ang will be able to practice breathing and visualize at the same time, and it will be easier when his strength increases. Time passed by. Chen Ang opened his eyes when the effect of the centennial emulsion dissipated. With a move in his heart, physical attributes emerged in front of him. Chen Ang. Body. 406,080 pull, 500. Force. 474 pull, 500. Min. 475 extreme, 500. Fine. 460 extreme, 500. Talent 1. Dead Dragon Arm characteristics. Armor break, dragon muscle, 4 times the strength increase, stealing life. Talent 2. Recovering body, blood spring, quick healing. Skills. Tearing claw, perfect, double strength increase, need to improve proficiency, fighting technique, dragon might, dragon breath, perfect, triple damage. Cultivation method. Basic ancient yoga, holy dragon breathing method. Good. Chen Ang nodded in satisfaction. The only thing that is frustrating is that the effects of some natural treasures are getting lower and lower. The treasures of heaven and earth also have high and low levels. As my strength becomes stronger and stronger, I am afraid that the treasures of heaven and earth that I need will become more and more difficult to find in the future. The stronger the strength, the effect of some natural materials and earth treasures will get worse and worse. It is only possible to find higher level treasures of heaven and earth. Thinking of this, Chen Ang also understood the importance of breathing. After all, Tiansai Bao is not so easy to find. Of course, Chen Ang was not too worried. He is the man with the gold finger after all. Taking a deep breath and clenching his fists to familiarize himself with the power of the lift, Chen Ang turned to look at Li Leiyao, who was beside him, still in the process of refining the centennial emulsion. Chen Ang was not in a hurry, looked at the location of the special item, and waited quietly. But this time, tapping, footsteps sounded. Chen Ang turned his head to look, and a surprised figure ran towards him. Chen Ang. Xiao Yiqing. Chen Ang looked surprised. It was Xiao Yiqing who came. However, behind Xiao Yiqing, there was still a shadow, looking at Chen Ang curiously. Li Leiyao is also there. When did you two meet? Xiao Yiqing asked with a smile on her face because she met Chen Ang. Chen Ang also smiled. I met you in the past 2 days, why are you here? And who is this? Without waiting for Xiao Yiqing's introduction, Qianying came over, stretched out her hand and introduced herself. Hello, my name is Zhang Shui. Hearing the name, Chen Ang looked startled, and then laughed. Oh, it's you. The woman on the standings didn't expect to be with Xiao Yiqing. And it looks like a good relationship. Previously, too much attention was placed on Xiao Yiqing, but at this time, after taking a closer look, Chen Ang couldn't help sighing in his heart, and he could only say that beautiful friends are also beautiful women. Zhang Shui was very handsome, with waist-length lavender hair, whether it was dyed or natural. On the body is a set of black and purple battle uniforms, which tightly wraps the body and shows it perfectly. I have admired you for a long time. Zhang Shui smiled indifferently, her eyes naturally noticed the special item and asked. You are unblocking for special items such as BFCH, right? Isn't it obvious? Chen Ang nodded and narrowed his eyes. What, are you interested? Certainly. Zhang Shui cupped her hands, and bowed first like an ancient person, then raised her head and said solemnly. After all, I met it, and I can't miss it for the sake of points, not to mention that there is a treasure of heaven and earth. Of course, the most important thing is that I want to see your strength. If I guessed correctly, your points skyrocketed before, so you should have killed a 5th order beast, right? Fighting intent appeared in her eyes. Although she is a woman, she is obviously a belligerent. Chen Ang was an accident, but after feeling it, he nodded and agreed after not realizing the killing intent. It was an accident that I killed a 5th order beast. As for seeing my strength, that's okay. As if it were a match. Just met, are you guys going to fight? Xiao Yiqing said quite speechlessly. Fortunately, she was not worried because she was discussing, otherwise, she really didn't know what to do. After all, they were both her friends. And during the time she was in the secret realm, thanks to Zhang Shui's help, she could be considered safe and sound. But having said that, she is also very curious about Chen Ang's strength. After all, during this period of time, she had also seen Zhang Shui's strength. She knew Zhang Shui's strength clearly, and she wondered if Chen Ang could defeat Zhang Shui. It's just a discussion, it shouldn't take much time. Chen Ang smiled and took the initiative to walk to the open space. Zhang Shui also nodded, walked over to Chen Ang with anticipation, and said seriously, "Be careful, my talent is water flow, but I have been promoted to the second order flow." Is it running water? He knows this talent. Although the names are similar, they are very different. Chen Ang naturally also expressed his talent. In terms of my talent, first order dragon claw, second order dead dragon arm. Hearing this, Zhang Shui's eyes flashed with surprise, but the fighting intent was even more intense. There was no need to speak. After the sound of whoosh sounded with a sound of breaking through the air, Zhang Shui suddenly charged and swept across with one leg. A transparent layer of objects can be clearly seen attached to her legs. That is running water, very thin, but it tells the rotation, as sharp as a blade. This talent, whether attacking or defending, is very powerful. But Chen Ang raised his right hand, and the dead dragon's arm emerged, blocking the blow with ease. The flowing water attacked the dragon scales, leaving no trace behind. It's not that the damage of running water is too low, but Chen Ang's body, which absorbs all the damage. Therefore, Chen Ang said with a smile, "Your attack will be returned to you." After all, the terrifying power on Chen Ang's body erupted and shocked, causing Zhang Shui's eyes to show a look of horror. Chen Ang seized the opportunity and threw a punch, hitting Zhang Shui directly in the abdomen. Boom! The enchanting body was blasted out like a cannonball. One strike. The battle is over. With blood spilling from the corner of Zhang Shui's mouth, she got up from the ground and looked at Chen Ang in horror. So strong. Although it was only a blow, it also made her feel the terror of Chen Ang's power. The power of that punch just now was absolutely terrifying. This is still Chen Ang's hand, otherwise the single blow will be seriously injured if he does not die. In this regard, Zhang Shui could not afford to lose. She wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. "Thank you. It's all about learning from each other," Chen Ang said with a light smile. Looking at Zhang Shui's eyes, there was also a hint of surprise. His punch, even if he is merciful, no one can easily bear it. You must know that the explosive power attached to his dragon muscles is terrifying. Not to mention the explosion formed by absorbing Zhang Shui's blow and adding his own strength, the ordinary talented person was hit and had no ability to get up at all. Tisk tisk, Chen Ang, I haven't seen you for a few days. It feels like your strength has at least risen by a notch. Xiao Yiqing came over and exclaimed. Hearing this, Chen Ang smiled and did not deny it. In fact, it is. Compared with the time he first entered the secret realm, his current strength has at least doubled. In particular, the perfection level Longwei is simply terrifying. At this moment, Li Leiyao also opened his eyes. After seeing Xiao Yiqing, she said with a happy smile on her face. Xiao Yiqing, why are you here? Who is this one? I just happened to meet you here. Xiao Yiqing showed a smile on her face, pulling Zhang Shui to introduce Li Leiyao. After learning about the situation, Li Leiyao also got to know Zhang Shui. Looking at the three girls like flowers and jade in front of him, Chen Ang scratched his head and muttered to himself. Why do I feel like a protagonist, surrounded by flowers? No, I have gold finger, maybe I am really a protagonist. He chuckled lightly and stopped his thoughts. Exactly at this time, on that tree, prohibition breakage of special items. A beam of light rose into the sky. You can take it. Zhang Shui said. Chen Ang nodded, jumped up without hesitation, took the special item and the treasures of heaven and earth with ease and landed. Looking at the Yang Linguo in his hand, Chen Ang showed a satisfied look on his face. Next, his attributes could be improved again. But you can't stay here any longer. Chen Ang looked at Zhang Shui and the others and asked. Next, shall we go together? Yes. Zhang Shui nodded and did not refuse. She also knew that Chen Ang was asking herself. Seeing Xiao Yiqing's happy appearance when she saw Chen Ang, she knew that Xiao Yiqing would not refuse. It just so happens that she hates being alone, so it's a good choice to be with Chen Ang. Without wasting time, the four set off directly. There are only a few days left until the end of the college entrance examination. They all have to hurry up and get scrutiny points. Especially Chen Ang and Zhang Shui. The one named Tong Shi is really tenacious, chasing after you all the way. Zhang Shui smiled after opening the standings and taking a look. However, every time you catch up, it will open up a distance for you. Chen Ang nodded when he heard the words. Child Stone. Second place in the standings. Also from DK City. The standings did bite tightly behind him. Chen Ang didn't care about this, said. It doesn't matter, the first seat, if I want it, no one can take it. You are very confident. Zhang Shui looked surprised. Chen Ang didn't say anything, just returned a smile. But the confidence contained in that smile made people look up. Look around. A line of prompts appeared in front of him. In the valley, there are many beasts. A day ago, there was a treasure of heaven and earth in this direction, but unfortunately, it has now been taken away. The ruins that just fell, but there are only some dry food in it. Are you sure you need it? Consider raising a pet. Blue-haired dogs are still very cute in this direction. Gee, these tips made Chen Ang helpless. Sometimes if you are lucky, you can find the direction of Tianxidibao by just looking for it. But sometimes, it is not so easy to meet Tianxidibao. The secret is big, but there are also many students. Many natural treasures were taken away by the candidates. Although Chen Ang regretted this, he also expected it, pointing in the direction of the canyon. Let's go this way, we'll have to find a beast and kill it. Good. The three girls had no opinion, and followed in the footsteps of Chen Ang. After waiting until the valley here. Don't say it. There are indeed many beasts. Is that the blue wolf pack? And the rotten serpents. There's a magic horned rhino there. Look over there, there are 2 earthquake bears. There are so many beasts here. The 3 women looked at the ferocious beasts in the canyon in front of them, and they all showed expressions of surprise. Chen Ang grinned. Isn't that just convenient for us to get points? That's right. Li Leiyao was startled, then nodded again and again. Xiao Yiqing also agreed, but reminded. But be careful, after all, many are tier 3, and there are tier 4 beasts. It doesn't matter, the 4th order beast can be handed over to him. Zhang Shui gestured to Chen Ang. Chen Ang shrugged helplessly, but still nodded. 4th order vicious beast, it is estimated that only he can easily solve it. But it just so happened that he also needed beasts to help him activate new characteristics. Thinking of this, Chen Ang stopped talking nonsense and stepped forward directly, rushing towards the magic horn rhinoceros. Before leaving, he looked at the 3 girls and reminded them. Be careful, let me know if there is danger. The 3 women nodded, and after looking at each other, they also rushed towards their respective goals. 0.0. The battle will begin. With the arrival of Chen Ang, the magic horned rhino suddenly roared angrily, and then fought against Chen Ang without hesitation. The violent collision, Chen Ang only slightly unloaded, and then fully endured it. It was just a violent collision, and Chen Ang grinned in pain. Although he was not injured, he could still feel the pain, and his endurance had reached the limit. Not enough, we have to come again. He murmured in his heart, punching out, the absorbed power exploded, blasting the magic horned rhinoceros out, but did not cause much damage to it. The magic horned rhinoceros got up from the ground shaking its head, roared again, and charged again. Again and again. Chen Ang is not in a hurry to solve this magic horned rhino immediately. Let it continue to slam into itself, and try to activate the characteristics by being beaten. The earth kept shaking. The trees were easily broken under the impact of the magic horned rhinoceros. Once, twice, 5 times, 8 times, 10th time. Finally, as the magic horned rhinoceros collided again, Chen Ang's eyes widened suddenly, as if he felt something, and after grinning with a sneer, his right hand turned into a dead dragon arm and suddenly swung out. The tearing claw urges. Puff. Terrorist forces erupted. On the head of the magic horned rhinoceros, 3 wounds running through the head appeared impressively. Boom. The magic horned rhino fell to the ground, blood flowing. Just one hit and he was killed. And Chen Ang exhaled with an excited smile on his face. Finally activated, the characteristics of the absorption body. Transformation. More damage can be converted into pure energy to absorb and store, including curse, poison, etc. This is the nature of the absorbing body. Looking at the prompt introduction in front of him, Chen Ang looked surprised. Good. It is a body that is very suitable for absorption, and at the same time is very powerful. At least for the absorption body talent, this feature makes the absorption body more powerful and more perfect. After all, the previous absorption body only absorbed damage, such as curses and poisons. It was impossible to include them. In addition, there are such as soul attack and so on. If the strength is strong, perhaps even the law attack can be absorbed. Definitely a very high growth feature. Chen Ang is very satisfied. However, this ability is not necessary to try. Next, kill the beasts first, and then stabilize the standings first. After Chen Ang laughed lightly, he made a fist in his left hand, and the 060 dragon claw in his right hand flashed a cold light. He stepped out and rushed towards a ground-shattering bear. Roar! The earthquake bear roared, aware of the killing intent on Chen Ang's body, and with a roar, he was enveloped by a ferocious spirit, exuding a brutal aura, and attacked with a single blow. The tearing claw is activated. Chen Ang sneered and walked away. Puff! The fierce soul was forcibly torn apart, and the power of the tearing claws further attacked the earth-shaking bear's head. With a terrifying blow, his head was torn apart, and the red and white things splashed all over the ground, died on the spot. Tier 3 beasts, now I can't stop my full blow. Chen Ang secretly thought that he had a more intuitive understanding of his own strength. The next few days, Chen Ang was walking with Zhang Shui and the others while hunting down beasts. Time passed quietly. Day 5, Day 6, 7th day. This is the last day. When this day passes, the secret exit will be opened. When the 8th day comes, when everyone woke up in the early morning and walked out of their resting place, they could clearly see the beam of light rising into the sky in the distance, which was very obvious. That is the exit of the secret realm. At the same time, on the standings, the ranking has been fixed. 1. Diwen City, Chen Ang, points, 128800. 2. Dukui City Tongxi, points, 100000. Congratulations, first place. Early in the morning, when Chen Ang came out of the cave, opened the standings and looked at his ranking, Zhang Shui's voice sounded behind him. Chen Ang smiled and said casually, "It was already doomed, wasn't it?" He said that he wanted the first place, so naturally he would not give it to others. After breakfast, the four of them set off and went straight to the exit of the secret realm. A few days passed in a flash. This secret realm is very fulfilling for Chen Ang. Really got a lot of good stuff. It's a pity that in the next few days, Chen Ang didn't encounter Tianxi Bao very much, even if he wanted to. Before this secret realm became the secret realm of the college entrance examination, basically most of the treasures of heaven and earth were collected by the official, and only a few were left. Under the search of all candidates, basically all the treasures that should be found were found and taken away. There is nothing left at all. Even if there is, it is hidden tightly. Of course, the real pity of Chen Ang is that his attributes are still a little bit worse. Chen Ang. Body. 500 pull, 500. Force. 500 pull, 500. Min. 500 extreme, 500. Essence. 489 extreme, 500. Talent 1. Dead Dragon Arm characteristics. Armor break, dragon muscle 4 times the strength increase, stealing life. Talent 2. Absorbing body, blood spring, quick healing, transformation. Skills. Tearing claw, perfect, double strength increase, need to improve proficiency, fighting technique, dragon might, dragon breath, perfect, triple damage. Cultivation method. Basic ancient yoga, holy dragon breathing method. Except for all the attributes of mental accidents, all of them have reached their limits. Only mental power is still worse. After all, there is no heaven and earth treasure specially designed to enhance spiritual power. In the next few days, Chen Ang didn't have as much time to visualize because he wanted to obtain points, and the growth was naturally slower. But after leaving the secret realm, there will be a few days of rest, which should be enough for me to reach my limit. Chen Ang thought in his heart and accelerated. When they reached the exit of the secret realm, a figure entered everyone's sight. "It's Tongxi, probably looking for you," Zhang Shui whispered in his ear. Hearing this, Chen Ang nodded slightly, his eyes flickering. After getting closer, the figure was completely seen. It was a young man, dressed in a battle suit, with an air of arrogance. After seeing Chen Ang and a few others, he bowed his hands politely. Is this Chen Ang? It's me, are you? I'm Tong Shi. Tong Shi's eyes suddenly turned to Chen Ang, and his fighting spirit was agitated. I'm waiting for you here, just to see your strength, to see why you can take the first place, and can you fight me? Hearing this, Chen Ang, who didn't feel the killing intent from Tong Shi, couldn't help shaking his head with a wry smile. How is it like Zhang Shui? They are all made to learn from themselves. This kind of thing is not good to refuse. But looking at the exit behind Tong Shi, Chen Ang thought about it and said, the exit to the secret realm is here, let's not waste time, we can decide the outcome with one move, how about it? Yes, Tong Shi agreed without any hesitation, and a burst of aura suddenly erupted from his body, sweeping all directions, and at the same time, a large knife appeared in his hand, and there was a faint aura of sharpness in the air. Seeing this, Chen Ang's right hand turned into the arm of a dead dragon. During the breath, the two exploded their speed at the same time, rushing towards each other. Reality. In secret, 5 figures walked out at the same time. It's Chen Ang. See you next time. Zhang Shui said goodbye to Chen Ang and the others. She needed to go back to her school. Chen Ang, I'm leaving too, goodbye. Tong Shi also said goodbye, his eyes firm. The next time we see you, let's play again, and I will definitely not lose. Hearing this, Chen Ang said helplessly. Let's talk later. Forget it. Chen Ang hurriedly walked towards his class. A pair of shocked eyes greeted Chen Ang. There is a square after all. On the square, a huge projection screen displays the standings. At this moment, Chen Ang ranked first. When Chen Ang returned, the head teacher looked complicated, and even asked in disbelief. Chen Ang, has your talent evolved long ago? Yes, Chen Ang smiled and nodded. No wonder. The head teacher sighed, this good seedling, he missed his eyes, and felt a little regret in his heart. It would have been better if you had known earlier and invested in it. With Chen Ang's current situation, it is bound to skyrocket in the future. But unfortunately, he didn't. So no matter what happens to Chen Ang in the future, he will only have a teacher-student relationship in his name. The key is that he did not give Chen Ang any help on the way to being a teacher. So whether this teacher-student relationship will be useful in the future, then the benevolent sees the benevolent and the wise sees the wisdom. At the same time, Tong Shi is here. A man walked up to Tong Shi and asked curiously. Lao Tong, when you left, you said you were going to fight Chen Ang. I see you two came out together. How about it? Is there any result? Tong Shi pursed his lips and shook his head. I lost. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.